Chapter 188 Into Quagmire 5. What John May Actually Fear. And, I admit that I was lacking some plot and I added Quagmire part so that I can distract you guys from the issue I was facing, but it is turning well. Anyway, this part won't take long, but never forget to support this novel. Also, if you are reading this on another site, 'cause I have noticed, be sure to come read on Webnovel and find our small community where your comments can reach me. Enjoy Redheart. Joel led us to a post on that overlooked the northern frozen plains north of the wall. What can I call you with? John Dare. This is my friend Wolf, and that big cat is Nefertiti. I replied to Joel, who was acting all heroic and mighty. I am Joliner, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. What is that message your king sent you with? Ever heard of Solitude? Huh! Solitude, the capital of Skyrim. Year 4 E196. I don't understand what you are saying. I looked at Wolf, who shook his shoulders. Joel is not remembering as easy as Wolf or Nefertiti. We have met before, right? I asked. I don't really remember you. I winked for Wolf and Nefertiti to go away. Once they took their distance and I was left alone with Joel, I approached her and she put her hand on her blade. Remember that night you tried to kill but ended up being beaten up and cornered into an alleyway? I drew closer to her while tried to remind her of that night, only to find her dagger on my throat. Such a thing didn't happen. Oh, how about that night when you went all crazy and tried to me in my room? Joel's face turned ugly and she glared at me. One more word and I'll. And what about that night beside the spring when we slept together? Joel seemed to have remembered something and her guard went down. Once that happened, I pressed on her body and pulled her to me, putting my lips on hers. It felt rather warm and soft in this bone-chilling weather. Something one would yearn for all day long. Joliner was tense, but she softened her attitude a second later. Guess it worked. I retreated my face behind and looked straight into her face, which looked ashen pale and blended with the background. Damn, I love you so much. The words came naturally when I looked at her. If you love me that much, then why are my clothes still on? Ha ha ha, I would take that offer any time but now. Of course, the TLK would cure memories, it is foretold in every legend so far. And TLK equals true love's kiss. What is that weird illusion I was in? Joel asked after realizing what had happened. I had to go through the explanation I went through a couple of times before, and Joel looked at me with a shocked face. You came into oblivion to get me out? Her eyes were shooting beams of excitement. Well, I am happy that you are ignoring the fact that we are in oblivion. I know, but you still came for me. Well, I should do so. Joel was very happy and clung on to me. Just like the stories, right? Lovers would go through oblivion to save each other. Oh, I see. She was reading a lot of novels lately. Except oblivion is normally the equivalent of hell, so I guess she is excited for her own reasons. I am not sure what is going on, but we should stick together until the reality shifts once again. We have to find Alina. Of course. Joliner was all out to find Alina too. I don't understand the bond they developed, but it is all fine as long as there is nothing scary going on. Just as we got reunited with Wolf and TT, a man came running to Joel. Lord Commander, the enemies are coming from the sky. Just as the Mane said that, the horn sounded once, twice and thrice. It seems that the Night Watch see the Horde as dangerous as the White Walkers. What came from the sky was an airship with red balloons carrying it. It is the Queen's reprisal. Damn, this Quagmire is so vivid. Is this a flying ship, John? Can you figure out how to make one? Wolfer got excited as soon as he saw the ship. I didn't reply, as I was expecting to see the owner of the ship and the antagonist of this nightmare, the Dark Lady, Queen of the Forsaken, Sylvanas Windrunner. I couldn't help but to get excited. This is one of my favorite villains of all time. She emerged to the front of the flying ship, looking at our direction. She seemed to be giving orders and getting ready to sweep over the trenches on the wall. I released my magicka until it could be seen ready to receive whatever she is throwing. I then called upon the ashen flames and made a gigantic fireball. The forces on the flying ship reacted to the big fireball by shooting all kinds of projectiles. I was covered by shields and got my moment to launch the fireball. The ship managed to avoid my attack, exposing a big part of the hull towards the attacks from the watch. Arrows were exchanged in a bloody manner, but I wasn't done yet. The next attack was a meteor spell. I raised my hands up and the magic took its time to get charged. The meteor normally gets formed in a high altitude before it comes down. Luckily, I took my time and released the meteor. The spell descended down on the flying ship, blowing up one of the balloons and taking down a lot of the weak forces on it. The balance of the ship tilted and rammed into the wall with a loud bang. An earthquake was felt and the whole wall started to shake. As we were standing on its side, a large chunk of that side that got rammed started cracking and a loud sound of ice breaking was heard. Brace yourselves! The edge of the wall broke and fissures formed on the ground. We were right in the center of the falling area. Shit! To me. I called on Wulfr and Nefertiti, who were killing the enemies that jumped down from the ship. They were a bit far and unlike me and Jolinar, these two has no means to land from a high place safely. Lightning will strike soon. Nice timing. I am still not leaving anything for chances. All I could do was to start using telekinesis and drag them all the way towards me. It was a true labor. Once I could touch them, lightning flashed and the scene changed. Third-person POV. It was by far the weirdest nightmare John has been to in Quagmire. He was not sure what this place was, but for some reason, it came in black and white. The world itself was black and white. It somewhat scared even John himself, let alone the rest. The space was really sickening to begin with. Okay, you three need to calm down before we figure out where Alina is, just as John tried to assure them. No, my skin. It is even paler. Jolinar screamed. Homan, why are you so weird? Nefertiti backed away. This is making me sick. Wulfr collapsed. John's fear came true. The three couldn't control the shock. It took him quite a while to calm them down. As he just was making sure they won't panic again, he started to take notice of the surroundings. It was a modern city once again. The theme was somehow poor and full of snow. The buildings were all back and the city had a lot of cars, yet no trace of life. John felt a presence coming from upstairs once again, but this time there was no hostility from it. The wall broke, and a large man jumped through it. The four were in wonder of the dramatic appearance of that man. Just as the man reached the ground with a superhero landing and dusted off the bricks from his long overcoats, John recognized him immediately. Marv! Hey kid! The man greeted John and ran to a car, driving it as fast as possible. John was gratified from what he just saw, so did the rest. The man they saw had a really scary face and was as tall as John himself. John, is this also a nightmare of yours? Wulfr asked. John was frozen for a while until he spoke once again. Let's hope it doesn't reach the nightmare level. John wasn't sure what the Augur and Shadow were doing, but he didn't want to come to this world the most. It is where something that makes John afraid exists. It was the world of Sin City. Chapter 189 Into Quagmire 6. A Dame to Kill For. And, first of all, Happy New Year. And sorry for the delay, I was traveling all day. Also, next chapter is the last of Quagmire chapters. Sin City, maybe not the scariest movie out there, but John had a weakness in his past life to a certain actress. Those eyes that scare the 9 lives out of him. He calmed himself down and tried to convince himself that this is just a dream. Still, he knew very well that dreams and reality are always the same things in Quagmire. Let's get moving. He picked one of the empty roads and walked while looking through every corner. It was until he found a usable care that he unlocked it with magic and checked if it was working. Get in. Why are we riding this? Wolfer asked. To avoid attention. Of who? Joel asked. John looked at her with a pale face and turned his head the other way. The old car ran on the road smoothly. It has been a long while since John drove a car, but he was still not that bad. At least the car didn't go off for the first few minutes. John, I can swear these things are the same things from your sketches? Wolfer asked. They are. Can you make anything like this? Wolfer kept going. I don't want to destroy the nature too early. John's replies were short and showed that he wasn't comfortable with the place around him. Wolfer and the rest read the mood and didn't talk anymore. During the ride, a few police cars were spotted in pursuit of other cars driven by criminals. A lot of gunfights broke out and the place was not peaceful at all. John would always point his hand out of the car to use telekinesis or fireball to get rid of whatever made him irritated. Strange enough, a colored man made an appearance on the road and he looked really disgusting. He was a man with a goblin-like face and all his skin was yellow. This was the Yellow Bastard. For this character, John had to stick his head out of the window and fuss da. Just like that. To the weird gazes he received from the passengers, John only acted indifferently and shot a fireball towards the yellow mess, ending any possible chance for its survival. Still, this doesn't reassemble the Basin City I know of. John was comparing his memories to the place and it didn't feel right. Some of the nightmares looked like reality but changed some of its features. Some nightmares were far from reality, some were far from both. John came to the conclusion that this is the first type. Strangely, Basin City was applied on a part of Skyrim and John clearly could tell that it was Winterhold. He navigated on that theory and arrived at a big casino on the side of the road. The sign read Katie's. This was a place John recognized, so he pulled over and walked towards it followed by his party. Once he walked it, the atmosphere resembled a real casino. Drinks, barmaids, strippers and all that jazz. John simply waved his hand and a few times, and some wallets disappeared from some pickets and teleported to his pocket. Riften will be terrorized when you decide to visit next time, Wolfer commented in a low tone. John has indeed become a scary thief, but he wouldn't use the art of magic in such trivial acts anymore unless it is something important. John wouldn't go back to crime that easily. Anyway, after he surveyed the place with his eyes, he found some friendly face to talk to. Approaching the man that was drinking on the bar, John casually picked one of the empty seats right beside him. The man seemed to be avoided for his appearance, but John was as tall as him, so there were no hard feelings. That was one way to get off home, through a wall I mean. John ordered a drink and talked first. Who, didn't think you can make it across the street and look at that, you're all the way here. Marv smiled at the other fellow hulkling who sat beside him and blew some of the smoke of his cigar on John. Heard about you. John looked with half an eye at Marv. They say you are a hard man with the heart of a teddy bear. Marv opened his eyes wide, not expecting to be taunted that fast. Still, he was cool with it. He just extinguished the cigar on the bar and shook his shoulders. Might be true. John smiled and didn't say anything until his bear arrived. Looking for a woman, he said. Isn't that the point of life? Marv also picked up a glass and replied calmly. John couldn't find a comeback, so he stuck to the subject. Black hair and crimson eyes, a woman of quality, her name is Alina. Marv raised his brows and didn't reply. John pointed for the bartender girl to refill for Marv. You sure about her? Marv asked. John nodded naturally. Well, you came to the right place. Marv said that and turned around to face the dancing platform. John's attention was pointed to the platform and just like that, a second later, lights flashed and an announcer spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, we from Katie's are happy to present to you your favorite cowgirl, Nancy. The announcer stepped aside and from the back walked a certain stripper that John recognized. Nancy Callahan was one of the characters that worked as a stripper and was famous for her iconic cowboy-themed dance and fashion style. Not just that, today as well the one you know and love, everyone's favorite doctor, Alina. John felt his head going light and looked at Marv, who was grinning to him. Alina walked out from the back dressed in the strangest thing John ever imagined her to be in. Even in this world devoid of colors, Alina's red eyes didn't lose their color, adding to that, the embarrassing red lingerie under the white doctor coat she was in. John lost all the words he was preparing for her and couldn't keep up with what's going on. The two girls on the platform started getting into the action as soon as the music started, and the performance was way too erotic. John tried to act, but he was not sure how to stop Alina. Wulfur turned the other way. Jelinar was not sure what to do. Nefertiti was normally not aware of what is going on. It soon, when John finally was about to lose it and released all his aura in the casino, not a second passed and chaos broke out everywhere. Everyone became scared and crazy, trying to jump over each other to escape from the place that turned from the heaven they sought to the hell they fear. John's aura was accurate and chased off the crowd that was watching the strip show. He then quietly walked to Alina. Alina got frightened from the scene that just happened and attempted to run away as fast as she could. John was about to catch her, but all of a sudden, tens of men with guns came out from the sides and started shooting at John. Marv and John's party jumped behind the bar to avoid the bullets, but John remained still, facing it all like that. With his two hands, John casted a strong spell that stopped all the bullets mid-air. The shooters were shocked silly, but John didn't wait for another round and struck them all with lightning magic. Sadly, Alina was long gone. She seemed to have escaped very fast. The only clue left was Marv. John looked towards the direction Marv was in, and the latter came out to see what happened. Marv was seemingly impressed with John killing all those shooters, even though he couldn't see what happened. Just as he was about to comment, he realized why John was looking for him. I understand. You can just go find her at the WIT. John didn't seem to understand what that was. Marv noticed and continued, she is an actual doctor. She will be in the WIT for sure. If you don't know where is it, then just go to the north and find the highest tower. John silently nodded and went out to get the car, and the rest followed him silently. John was standing in front of the highest tower in the northern part of the city, and his face was cringing hard. It seemed that WIT stood for Winterhold Institute of Technology, this nightmare's variant of the College of Winterhold. John ignored the fact and walked directly to the entrance, with his detection spreading around the place. He noticed some tracks and followed it to a higher floor. The place looked cold, but finding Alina was not that hard. Once he arrived at the floor she was on, he saw her going out of a certain room, and she saw him. Her face paled, and she was about to scream, but he moved his hand as fast as possible and used telekinesis to pull her towards him. Alina was left from the floor and directly flew to John's arms. Muffling her voice, John dragged her to the empty room she just came out from, and their confrontation started. Alina was depressed. Too depressed to the point that she put her head between her arms and cried. Jelinar was standing beside her trying to console her, and John took Wulfur outside. She regained her true self, but she also remembered how the dream was like, and she was too depressed to do such a cheap act in front of John. A girl from a noble house like her was utterly ruined by the mere idea, even though it was not her. From what John understood, her personality in the dream was that of a doctor at the WIT with a part-time as a stripper. It was awkward, but it really fitted the plot of Sin City. A mafia member, a mutant coven leader, an exiled person to the frontier, and finally a stripper. I am not sure if this is because of me or you, my friends are all that awesome. John was having a hard time summing the whole situation up. What about the nightmare that you woke up in? Wulfur asked. An illegal immigrant. Join the band then. Both sighed and were waiting for the next bolt of lightning to strike to figure out how to exit this world now that they found Alina. But as they were discussing that in the corridor in front of Alina's room, footsteps were heard and from one side, and a lot of armed people came in. On their lead was a certain astonishing beauty with an evil look on her face. John was about to deal with whatever that was coming, but he saw that woman and his body froze. It was her. Ava Lord, an antagonist played by Eva Green, the evil face that can scare John Dare. Chapter 190 Into Quagmire and the Temple of Vaermina. John's face turned pale once he saw that lady. Wulfr didn't expect to see John making such expression, but he realized that the situation was something they should waste time on. If John, that walking magic cannon, can't deal with the situation, then the objective is to run. "We are leaving," Wulfr shouted and knocked the door open. Alina seemed to have calmed down and found something more covering to dress into. Once the ladies went out, they all saw the new visitors. "Dr. Alina, I am sure we had an appointment. Are those people related to our business?" The woman on the lead of the group walked calmly towards Alina. Wulfr notified Jull that John was in a pinch, so she took action first. Putting her hands on the wall of the corridor, Jull applied her aura and the wall was burst, making a cloud of dust screen. Using the chance they have, Wulfr dragged the frozen John. The whole group took the other way, escaping. "What's wrong with him?" "I don't know, maybe this woman is something that can scare him. Such a thing exists. Don't worry, Homan. We'll protect you." On the other side of the wall, the woman with colored green eyes and blue lipstick smiled with viciousness at the rubble. "I don't know what is that, but get them." To her words, all the men around her moved through the rubble. Gunshots were heard throughout the campus as Wulfr led the team out. It was annoying how silent John was. "Are you going to stay like that for too long?" John heard Shadow's voice echoing into his head. "What is going on, Shadow? This reality is taking too long to shift. It seemed that your flawless performance in the past few reality shifts has vexed Vaermina enough to the point that she personally maintained the reality when she sniffed your fear. What do you expect me to do? Didn't you see how that woman looked at me? As if she is going to carve you up and eat your liver. So you felt it too. Leave me alone." Even a being like Shadow was mentally affected by that look. After some maneuvering, John managed to grab a hold of himself and started looking for a way out. According to what Vaermina said, she would wait for him in her temple at the center of her realm. After some analysis, the augur estimated that it should be at the highest or centermost point of the realm. With that in mind, John and his team managed to escape the WIT and chose to head south. After some time, lightning finally flashed and reality shifted. John still chose to keep going as south can go, as he believed that they have strayed too far into the edges of Quagmire. What made him believe that he was wrong was how many times the reality in Quagmire started to shift. It started focusing on John's faked fears that were into his head, and a lot of movies came out to life. If John wasn't an otherworlder, he would have vomited from all the civilizations and reality shifts that were projected by the realm. Actually, Wulfr was the first one to start feeling sick. It wasn't normal at all to experience different realities, which day and night weren't stable at all, and all felt completely vivid. Jelinar and Alina also became sick, but a zombie apocalypse train pushed them all back on track. Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Jurassic World, Mad Max. This realm is going all out the more we head south, John declared as he was supporting Alina up. What are all those nightmares? Are you all right, John? Do you really see all that when you sleep? Alina wasn't sure how John is acting all right in these environments. John didn't know whether to laugh or cry. None of them were his nightmares, but the realm was really putting on a serious fight by projecting all these movies. There were even those gigantic walking Legos, being trapped in a train tunnel, and swimming with oversized sharks. It's okay. As long as we could finally bring you home, everything will be resolved just fine. Alina felt touched by John's words. John then conjured 3 new flame hawk Atranacs and hopped on one with Alina while keeping her in his embrace. "What happened with Father?" Alina asked. "Since you 4 disappeared, things went really in a dramatic situation. Your father is okay, but he was worried so much about you. We headed into the Tower of Dawn together and ventured to its inner sanctum. He was trying hard to keep calm and did some unreasonable things, but eventually, we succeeded to get Vaermina's attention. From that point, I dived into Quagmire alone." "I see. I am sorry to drag you into this." Alina got closer to John, who didn't really mind it at all. "I am already dragged without you doing anything." John got closer to Alina, who looked away after understanding what John had in mind. Even after looking away, John didn't seem to be going to stop anytime soon. "You know, that dance you did a while ago, it was nice, especially that thing you did with the whip." John started reminding Alina of her short-lived career as a stripper. Alina's face became even redder and she was struggling to break free from John to the edge of the flame Atranac hawk's body, not even realizing that can she just conjure a new one and fly away. "You know, old man Sigurd said that thing to me before I go into this realm. If I remember correctly, it was about him not being stingy with me anymore if I bring you home." Alina opened her eyes wide and looked at John, who was smiling with a smug face. "So, what do you think about it? I was planning to attend a friend's wedding, then take you around Skyrim. I can show you Riften and take you to that inn in Whiterun." At this point, John was taking his smug act on Alina. She, on the other hand, was thinking about what will happen when they go home, no awareness of what was happening behind John. Jolinar was glaring daggers at John, who was taking his way with Alina. She kept lashing with her aura at him, and he responded with his aura back. The comical scene was being seen by Wulfr, who only sighed in reaction. He too was having some plans, and was waiting to get out of this realm and invite Bjorna too. During all that, the party advanced through Quagmire, and reached a place where the nightmares stopped haunting people. John considered this the core area in Quagmire. Vaermina should be close now. After trying to analyze the realm of Quagmire, John came to the conclusion that it is made of 2 areas, the core and the nightmare plains. The plains surrounded the core, and were very vast and desolate lands, not that John was seeing it from the core. A lot of souls were wandering around, and also some mortals were present. It seemed that the place was a prison for those who got trapped in Quagmire. The core area was not as scary, but it felt dangerous. John saw a lot of castles and buildings that seemed to be full of not to be messed with inhabitants. These were probably the Daedra that served Vaermina. The place was overall dark and gloomy, yet John knew that the only way out of Quagmire is in the centermost region of the core itself, the Temple of Vaermina. After a short ride, John and his party arrived at a mountain that looked as straight as a blade. The place was suffocating to be into, but the sharp road up the mountain was the only way to go there. Even flying around felt reckless. The sharp mountain seemed to be home to some creatures and a place where unpleasant Daedric ingredients grew. They were all property to the Lord of the Realms, so John kept going straight up the road. It was when he reached the highest point that he could see a large statue of the Daedric Prince Vaermina. It looked like a female mage who was hiding her face behind an evil-looking mask. She was holding a strange staff in her left hand, and 2 large snakes seemed to have climbed from the ground all the way to her arms. This was the demonic and evil image is known about the Daedric prince called Vaermina, the one whose sphere of influence includes nightmares, psychological terror and torment, dreams, bringing evil omens, and stealing memories. Behind that statue was even a larger construct that carried a hint of the Roman architectural style, with all the large pillars. John didn't dally around and advanced through these pillars, followed by his party. After bypassing the entrance, only a place of darkness was what greeted them. John could sense his way and guided the others in a straight line without feeling any danger. It kept going like that until they saw a glimpse of green light. Reaching that, all they could find was a large glass orb emitting unearthly sound with a green mist flowing around it. It was The orb of Vaermina. Wasn't this thing destroyed? John was shocked silly when he saw the orb. The orb of Vaermina, named for its patron, was an orb apparently used for scrying. Its ability was beyond sense, as it could see anywhere and everywhere as long as the user knew what he or she was looking at. This was the favorite toy of Vaermina that she uses to spy on the mortal world and pick praise for her amusement. This orb was used by Lord Nerefin to spy on Titus Mede II and his legions during the Great War. The orb was eventually removed from Nerefin by none other than Tyr Firemane and his friends on the cost of a grave injury that Tyr suffered that day. John later decided that it was stolen by the Daedric prince Bothia, an enemy of Vaermina, to use it for her own reasons. John heard the tale from Tyr personally. But it still didn't make sense. Why would the orb be intact? It was destroyed indeed, but in the end, and like everything that is mine, it will always return to me. A voice answered John's questions. John looked around and saw the person that made him freeze once again. It is Vaermina. She took that form. I know. John has realized that Vaermina took the form of Ava Lord to mess with him again. With the darkness dispersing away, John could see clearly the face that gave him chills all over his spine. Vaermina in that form walked while holding a staff in her hands, the staff of corruption. Even while walking around casually, Vaermina was felt like a giant approaching John and his party. John, who never viewed the original spirits as gods, for the first time in his life, understood why they were treated so. The eldest of all races, the original race and the holders of the laws of power, Vaermina gave a lot of power just by being around, even though that was not the real her but only a fragment of the power the name Vaermina showed to those particular band of mortals. No one moved a muscle. They all understood what was going on. Even a cat like Nefertiti was just frozen solid. I see that a certain idealistic brother of mine has left something special on you. I see. How laughable, though, for him and that demon to see eye to eye. Vaermina looked at the staff in her hand, and it just disappeared. I wonder what sort of fun is yet to come. How many nightmares will I be watching from now on? Vaermina continued with her self-monologue. She then looked at John viscously. Make sure to spread lots of dreams with that little toy I left for you, Vaermina commands you. John could only nod. Vaermina didn't seem to send John away as she started checking the people around him. What a bunch of misfits. Interesting. Vaermina looked at Wulfr, Nefertiti, Jelinar and finally Alina. When her eyes landed on Alina, however, she noticed something. Vaermina pointed her hands at Alina and something bizarre happened. Aya! Followed by a painful scream from Alina, two things flew out from Alina's head. Alina! No. John's face paled and moved as fast as he could to catch the falling body of Alina. Once he caught her and looked at her face. He fell silent, only looking back at Vaermina with a shocked face followed by an angry look. Jelinar and Wulfr could see what happened to Alina's face. Her two crimson eyes, they were taken by Vaermina. Chapter 191 The Return. I was 3 standing in front of my sleeping beauty in her chamber. Jul was nursing her and Nefertiti was guarding them. It is no wonder now that Alina was tricked to go to the Tower of Dawn by an envious bitch from her clan. I understood everything once Nefertiti reported that she noticed the same evil sensation she could feel from Quagmire on that bitch. To explain what happened from the start, we should go back to 3 days ago when we left Quagmire. What we experienced was beyond sense or belief. After Vaermina let us go from her realm, I remember waking up in the inner sanctum of the Tower of Dawn, and no one was there waiting for us. All I could find was Alina, Jul, Wulf and Nefertiti lying on the ground around me. The next thing I found was the cursed staff, the skull of corruption, floating not far away from me. It was emitting an aura as if it was communing with me, calling for me to approach and claim it. Reluctantly I took it and covered it with an old piece of linen cloth. After that, I tried to wake up Alina and the rest, but they were all fatigued. They were hungry and their power was fading. I couldn't understand why, but I started to heal them right away. Still, only Nefertiti showed signs of responding and woke up. "Homan hungry." That's what she said. From that alone, I understand what is going on and why no one came for us. We have been gone for more than what I expected. It all made sense now. We were inside the realm of Vaermina. The law of time around an original spirit must be ruled only by them. It seemed that Sigurd was taken away by his clansmen. That time I transferred a lot magica into the 4 companions of mine until I almost exhausted myself. Their conditions got stabilized. After that, I cut a piece of my robe and covered Alina's eyes with it. The wounds around her eyes were not normal, but it will be her power that will she need to deal with such wounds. From the point onward, I conjured a few flame Atronach horses and put everyone on them, taking the way out of the cursed place. The way to the Moonblade clan was not easy. A snowstorm insisted that we should stay the first night in a cave, leaving me awake all night to fend against the attacks of the hungry packs of wolves. Nefertiti fully woke up in the next day, followed by Wulfr and Jelinar. Alina was the most exhausted one, so she didn't wake up and made me more worried. That day we ate grilled wolf meat which tasted so terrible, but even I was hungry. At the end of the second day, we reached the mountain range where the Moonblade fort was located and walked the hard way up. The storm was still blowing hard. The first thing that we encountered was a large gate blocking the road. It was the checkpoint where the Moonblade forces had on the mountain road. After trying to call for anyone beyond it, we discovered that it was abandoned, probably due to the storm. Bypassing it with teleportation was the only option, but I had to use Eye of the Mind to see past the gate and teleport through it. I was using magic to solve every problem that we ran into for the past few days to the point of exhaustion. Even though everyone except Alina was up, they were still weakened greatly. Even I had to supply Alina with my magica to warm her from the inside. Beyond that gate was a straight road to the Moonblade fort. Who welcomed us was a small force dispatched to deal with the intruders that got detected going through the gate. On the lead of that force was a girl called Elsa Moonblade. The culprit that I yet to know was behind all this mess. Once that girl's eyes landed on Alina, who was laying on a flame Atronach horse, I could see shock and clear killing intent towards Alina from that girl. Before I could even react, Nefertiti transformed to beast mode and jumped towards Elsa, baring her fangs and brandishing her claws. This would be a clear aggression towards the Moonblade, so I hastily pulled the oversized cat from her tail. What amazed me that time was Nefertiti's actions. She sensed all kinds of killing intents before and didn't even react like this. I had to apologize for her actions, saying that she was on alert all night. The girl who was leading the group almost wanted to seize Alina and kick us out, but I wouldn't let her so much lay a finger on Alina. My words were clear back then: lead us inside or stay out of our way, either way we are going forward. I didn't expect the skin of that girl to be so thick, but all the clansmen behind her cleared the way, and reluctantly she did so. From the behavior of Nefertiti, I knew that this girl is troublesome for Alina to be kept alive, but I later found out that she was behind the whole mess. Once Sigurd met us, he almost fainted when he saw Alina. My reunion with Jonrad wasn't as warm, but Alina's state was bad. I stopped him from removing the blindfold on Alina's eyes. I could only convince him that Alina overused her eye powers to fight off the nightmarish realm she was trapped in, and she is just resting. I can't let him. What has become of Alina's eyes? Nothing good will come from that at all. The good thing about Sigurd was that he trusted my words in the end, as we had already trust each other, as we knew that the both of us want the best for Alina. And now we arrived at the point where I sat down in Alina's room, looking at her sleeping in a weakened state, and Jul was beside her. They both looked so weak and pale after going through that nightmarish realm. I didn't know what to do to wake her up, but I knew that she needs time to be able to wake up. I can't allow anyone else to see what happened to her eyes. This situation is far from over and needs to be contained. The next day, Alina showed signs of getting healthier and Jull also took a fair share of rest. Wulfr, on the other hand, fell to fever and I went to nurse him for the day. Nefertiti, who regained her health faster than anyone, reported that she sensed some weird movements around Alina's chambers last night. I didn't want to leave anything for the chance as I knew who was moving suspiciously. It was that girl Elsa and her ugly little sister. To chew the flies away, I went directly to meet with Sigurd, who regained his youthful shape, and talked to him face to face while most of the elders were present. I want that girl Elsa locked away. This was what I said in front of everyone just like that. Preposterous! John Dare, we realize that you are an ally but don't take it too far. Elsa is one of the Moonblade's finest daughters. Exactly. She is to be wed to Zen Firemane and her sister Kaya is to be wed to Ragnar Firemane. Who do you think you are to think you can talk shit about them? Some of the Moonblades were very displeased with my demands. The person in question herself was shocked by my direct demand and made a tranquil face once she got defended by her clansmen. I ignored them and looked at Sigurd. He made a calm face and replied, "What are your reasons?" First, she is the main suspect of conspiring to send Alina and my friends into a danger zone. Second, she showed a very disrespectful attitude towards Alina on many occasions. Third, she delayed Alina's arrival yesterday and wanted to kick us, Alina's company, away from the gates of the mountain. I broke out Elsa's actions into detailed crimes that made her look worse and worse. Still, every time I came up with something, voices of objection rose to debunk my accusations. Still, Sigurd always signaled them to shut the fuck up. And finally, I came to the last things I wanted to say. Lastly, I don't want an unwanted presence roaming around the chambers of my fiancée. No one said anything that time. These idiots just stared at me then looked at Sigurd with eyes wide open. Sigurd's face didn't change one bit. He was just sitting there indifferently while looking down at everything and everyone. He then grinned. If my son-in-law wishes for it, then it shall be. Take that girl away to the Tower of Redemption. The voice they were waiting to speak out and teach me my place just shook the hall with these words. 2 guards of the Moonblades moved towards Elsa and dragged her away in voices of plea and stares of shock. This was just the start, I tell you. Wait until Alina wakes up, just wait. Chapter 192 House Dare Assemble. And, sorry about yesterday's chapter. I was applying for a job, lore-related and all. I guess it is my first step to get reincarnated to Skyrim. Also a big shout out to Jordan Gotthold. Finally is getting some attention. And we hit 10K collection. Hooray! Sigurd didn't do this awesome move on his own, it was a fully planned act from the start. I wouldn't be able to act in the Moonblade clan this disrespectfully anyway. Still, the reaction of the people around was worth it. Announcing my engagement to Alina on such short notice was a bit hasty, but I needed it to be able to act on her behalf. Sigurd, after all, is the patriarch and can't go around taking his daughter's side easily. Also, what is better than a former professional lawyer to defend Alina? Anyway, that girl Elsa was dragged away like a chicken taken for slaughter. I kept looking at her coldly until she was taken from my sight. Now, my status as Alina's fiancé can't be looked down on. I am a Firemane even though I was announced as a distant relative with the bloodline. All this and that kept the atmosphere inside the great hall awkward. I was still receiving some gazes of hostility, but whatever. They are all can go to oblivion as far as I care. Sigurd called the clan meeting off and I was invited to his study. Little rascal, I may have given my consent but that doesn't allow you to go around with a smug face like that. After that outstanding performance of mine, this guy said that. The nerve. Old man, I am not going to argue with you anymore. I'll just take Alina and leave. I said and turned around. Hey, wait. At that moment, Sigurd dropped the attitude. He noticed that I got him and diverted the topic immediately. How is Alina's condition? Sigh. She is all right. Her eyes are healed, but she can't, turn it off anymore. Sigurd nodded and lowered his head gloomily. Why is it you? He asked. Excuse me. Why is it you who can't get hurt by her eyes? What is the secret? Oh, I see. For these words, I sat down on a chair opposite to Sigurd and started remembering how did it all go. Vaermina, that vile Daedric prince, she wanted to use Alina for her own amusement. Just like how I got the staff that can spread the terror of Vaermina in the mortal plane, Alina's eyes got blessed, or rather cursed, by Vaermina. Her eye power became more powerful than before, very much powerful that they can actually cause material damage. Wulfr and Jullinar accidentally saw her eyes after Vaermina put them back, and they couldn't stay on their feet anymore, part of the reason why Wulfr fell ill the past few days. Jullinar was a lucky one, as she has more flexibility than Wulfr and strangely more vitality. She recovered immediately after I applied some healing. The ones who didn't get affected one bit were me and Nefertiti. Even though I understand why Nefertiti did not get affected as she is linked to my power and she is blessed by Herson, I don't understand why I don't get affected by Alina's power at all. Some of my theories are dependent on the Dragonborn stuff, which is rather everything is dependent on. I am not really upset, but I'd rather have something other than Akatosh's blessings and all that. In the end, after a week of being trapped in Quagmire, I got the Skull of Corruption, which is recorded in the books of history to have ridiculous abilities, and Alina acquired more eye powers. According to what we know, Alina can detect lies, scry other places, see some futures, tell fortunes, and after awakening, she can see clearer, further, slower, and can use a fear-type illusion power from her eyes. Alina herself hated the power she gained after awakening and never used her eyes in anything other than telling lies from truth. Now, Vaermina forced Alina's eyes to be always on the awaken mode. Not just that, but it seemed that Vaermina did something similar to what the augur to me and Herson to Nefertiti did and added something like an astral extension so that Alina's eyes can do more damage, and cause not just ordinary state of fear. Alina's eye can now cause psychological terror and can make people sink into their own nightmares and God knows what else. Vaermina won't just use me as a way to gain nightmares by that staff I got, but will also force Alina to do so by her own eyes. Such cruelty. I guess I was lucky to not lose any one of my friends to that Daedric prince and her realm. And now, to answer Sigurd's question as for why I don't get affected by his daughter's eyes, I wouldn't be able to say all that. Maybe something related to fate or whatever. That's all I could say. Fate as a term is an interesting topic, but one that can't be understood fully. Even the Greybeards and the Sijic Order rather not directly interfere with it. Actually, if I, the last Dragonborn, is to be stripped from my own fate as a Dragonborn before the prophecy is fulfilled, I may lose everything. It is not something to worry about, but fate, prophecies, and the Elder Scrolls are all related and can be said as the hardest topic to discuss between us, the students of mysticism. Father-in-law, you don't need to worry. I will do whatever it takes to help Alina out of that dilemma she is in. My master will never let her students suffer like that. We are a strong line of mages, and we take care of our own. There is definitely a solution. Yes, boy. For her sake, yours and mine too. Sigurd replied and looked depressed. I stood up and was about to go, but I halted my steps, remembering the important matter I was here for in the first place. That girl Elsa or whatever, I am not done with her, you know that, right? Sigurd looked and nodded. Anyone who tries to so much put a finger on Alina is a goner. I don't care if it is my niece or whatever, but she has to pay for sending my daughter to a cursed realm of oblivion. Sigurd said in a bloodthirsty tone. His killing intent activated his aura subconsciously, and that atmosphere around that monster felt overbearing to the extreme. This youth-like old man is another 60 years old monsters on par with Jonrad and Hilda, not far than Nerina too. Just why doesn't he show off and act as lawless as I do? He would have solved a lot of problems rather than looking depressed all the time. It is fine, father-in-law. I will take care of the matter. Just tell me, when do the guards switch shifts for that Tower of Redemption? Around midnight. Don't be too careless. You can count on me. With that all said and done, I left Sigurd's study for Alina's chambers. In front of Alina's chambers, Nefertiti was stretching her limbs after taking a nap in her beast form. None of the servants of the Moonblades dared to come close to the oversized cat, and thus Alina's matters were only handled by Jull. Even though Alina woke up earlier, it was only a slight response to her surroundings. She could be fed and listen to some words. She was still blindfolded though. I tried to remove the blindfold, but she panicked and almost cried. She said that they sometimes feel like burning and sometimes cause her pain, but that a normal reaction to the changes in her eyes. She needs to adapt to the changes first before she could feel comfortable once again. I spent the whole afternoon analyzing the magical power in her eyes, but I need an expert's opinion. That's why I will take her to Nerina as soon as possible. As I went into Alina's room, I was charmed once again with the elegance of it. Its fine furniture that was personally imported from High Rock, her soft covers and stuffed dolls, the calming incense that was imported from Hammerfell, her bed's red canopy that made it feel like a queen is residing there. What can I just say? I didn't notice the beauty of this place at first as I was worried about Alina, but now it came back to life after she woke up. I sat in front of Alina, who was wearing a large robe and sitting silently on her bed. She seemed to have fully awoken but still remained blindfolded. Jullinar was sitting beside her reading her some book. I am glad to see their relationship becoming this close. How do you feel? I asked while caressing her soft small hands. Alina smiled softly and nodded. I feel okay, Saini. John. Yeah, you need to get used to calling your fiancé with his name from now on, I replied. Alina smiled and didn't say anything. I was used to her covering her lower face, so I was used to read her mood through her eyes, but now it became somewhat upside down as her eyes were covered. I am sorry if Sigurd and I rushed in so fast. It was. Alina hurriedly but her index on my lips, signing for me to stop. Being your fiancé is just made my life better and better, no matter how sudden it came. I now don't feel sad about what happened to me. I understand, I said while taking her hand close to me and kissing its back. I swear I will find a way to help you see again, I said, then pulled her close to me. I couldn't help but hug her. On the side, Jullinar was looking at this pink scene while smiling. My hand moved on its own and pulled her in my embrace. You too, I swear I will heal your eye. It was a bit too greedy for me to have two beauties all for myself, but I am a greedy person and I admit it. These two beauties are my future wives and I don't care about anyone's opinion. Yeah. All these sweet words and Jull started to ruin the mood, but spank. Her too, but cheeks got spanked by Alina and me almost at the same second. In this warm atmosphere, a small creature stuffed herself between the three of us and squirmed to fit in the place. Homan. So warm. Oh, I almost forgot her meow-jesty. Now, with a beauty on the left, a beauty on the right and a cat on my lap, I can proudly announce that House Dare is coming to be in a splendid way. With all the members gathered we need to. Let's spill some blood. Yeah, it's about time, Jull agreed. The four of us separated from each other and started to get ready to go to the Tower of Redemption. Chapter 193 Beyond Good and Bad. Midnight in the back of the Moonblade Mountain, a little girl walked with unsteady steps. She was carrying a blanket while heading towards an isolated tower. The tower was heavily guarded and the little girl was naturally seen as she wasn't even trying to hide. A guard waved his torch to guide the girl to him. Young maidservant, what brings you to the Tower of Redemption this hour? The guard looked at the girl with a cold gaze. The little girl seemed to be uncomfortable with his gaze, and was a little bit shy on words. "And Miss Elsa, she needs blankets." "Fine, leave them here and go." The guard stretched his hand to grab the blanket from the girl, but she stepped back hurriedly. "This is for Miss Elsa. Miss Kaya and the elder told me to deliver it purse." The girl acted with caution and hugged the blanket she was holding tightly. "Tsk. Don't test my patience, brat." The guard was displeased with the girl's attitude, and seemed to be going to pull the blanket forcefully. "Keep your hands to yourself, Paul." "Steve." Another guard saw the commotion and cut in. "Let the girl in, man. If an elder is sending her, then just let do what she came for. Don't offend people we can't offend." "But the Patriarch just imprisoned Miss Elsa, if we—" "You think the Patriarch will care if an elder came to bust your ass? Just let her in and spare us." Sigh. "All right, you guide her in." Paul let the girl pass and Steve guided her into the tower. It was a high building built in the Nordic style. The only flaw is its location that was on an isolated peak that made all the coming and going winds go through its gaps and even make ice get formed inside. The place was some sort of frozen hell, and the moonlight that illuminated the place made it even more terrifying. This place is where the main family members get punished. The guard led the way into a higher floor that was even more chilly than the first floor. Even the strong guards would need to build up some resistance to get through the place. The guard looked at the girl who followed him and was about to tell her to not go further, but once he turned around, he almost dropped his jaw. The place that made him shiver didn't even affect the girl one bit. She was walking normally while looking at the guard with her expressionless big blue eyes and red rosy cheek. The guard gulped on his saliva and smiled with a bit of fear. He thought to himself that this girl is not a simple maid, after all. She may be one of the children the hidden clans pick up for their unique talents. This is something a lowly guard like him shouldn't have interfered with from the start. "Young lady, Miss Elsa is just around that corner." The guard spoke politely and pointed to a certain place. The girl looked and saw a cell with just a few steps away. With a nod, she walked forward on her own and reached the cell, looking at the person inside it. Inside the cell sat a tall girl with a thin body, black hair, gray eyes and all the other features of a Moonblade, Elsa Moonblade. She sat in a lotus position, and a small hint of aura could be seen trying to fend the cold away. "For you." The little girl passed the blanket through the bars of the cell, and the blanket fell on the floor. Elsa opened her closed eyes and saw something she needed dearly from someone she didn't recognize. She just moved and grabbed the blanket, covering herself as fast as she could. "Did you bring food?" Elsa asked in a pained tone. The expressionless girl shook her head. "Tsk. They just sent you with a blanket? Was that all my father could sneak for me? Damn it. Just go away and bring something warm for me to eat." The little girl looked at Elsa, then just turned around and walked away. Elsa remained in her cell, cursing her dumb luck for being dragged all the way to this cursed place. She was standing on top of hundreds and under a few, but now her status has fallen so low to the point that even a lowly maidservant didn't speak with her in proper manners. These damnable people, how dare they? To think they could sway the clan to turn on me like that. Her fiancé, huh? We'll see to that. Just wait until I get out of here. This time, that bitch Alina won't even see sunlight, and that John Dare. I swear I will make him suffer for it, he will. Are you serious about doing so? A voice cut Elsa's cursing. Elsa didn't expect to hear that voice here of all places, and jumped away, then turned around. How? Why? Who Elsa saw was the little girl from just a minute ago. Why was this girl in this cell? And how could she come from the other side, not through the cell's door? Elsa wondered. The girl that barely could be seen as a 10-year-old brat looked down on Elsa, and the air around her changed. The cell wasn't tight or anything, but in front of that girl, Elsa felt like she was frozen not by cold but by fear, primal monstrous fear that only an apex predator can give off. This girl was just standing and Elsa only felt helpless and cornered. A weird movement was felt behind the girl that caught Elsa's eyes. It was something a human should not have. Why do you have a tail? Elsa questioned, and the girl tilted her head with a weak smile. To fluff you, my dear. The girl took one step towards Elsa as she said that. Elsa reflexively moved back, but she noticed another strange thing that a human shouldn't have. Why do you have claws? Elsa questioned, and the girl smiled wider. To grab you, my dear. The girl took one more step towards Elsa while saying so. Elsa reflexively moved back once more, but she noticed one stranger thing when the girl smiled. Why do you have big fangs? Elsa questioned, and the girl halted her step. To shred you apart, my dear. The girl moved this time, and in a flash waved her claws and opened her mouth while jumping on Elsa. Screams and wails sounded, but no one heard even a shriek. I was waiting in the dark with Alina and Joel. We were standing in the outside and watching the situation at the tower. Nefertiti has done a splendid job delivering the blanket to that bitch Elsa and returned with the news. I sent her once again into that cell by teleportation this time, and she should have started playing with Elsa first. Nefertiti was taking the child form that we barely managed to achieve outside Quagmire. Her appearance was adorable and heart-melting. She can just bless the whole damn Nirn by just existing in the same plane of existence. She doesn't like the child form that much and prefers the other forms over it, but she still needs to learn its charm later. The only problem we faced in the transformation process was how to conceal some parts of her, like her fluffy tail and her big cat ears on top of her head, also her claws and fangs. Still, she was so devilishly cute. The loveliest thing was how she said John to me for the first time. I almost died from the happiness, I tell. My heart literally skipped a few beats. Anyway, back to reality. I was waiting for the right time to teleport into the cell. While doing so, I observed Alina and Joel, who were having some girl-to-girl talk away from me, and were giggling to each other. I really wanted to eavesdrop, but Joel's stealthy aura can block sounds and life signals even from me. I was a bit concerned about Alina's and Joel's relationship, but I started to get the feeling that it is becoming even smoother than their relationship with me. Seriously, sigh. A few seconds later, I felt Nefertiti's telepathic signal and understood that we can come in now. Let's go. I called the girls to come closer. They approached me while smiling and didn't say anything. I held them both, and looked at the tower with my aura, then activated the magical runes, and space twisted with us at the center. The next thing we saw was the inside of a desolate cold cell that felt a bit scary. So this is the infamous Tower of Redemption, I said while looking around the cell until my eyes spotted a bloody figure thrown in a corner. A black cat was sitting straight beside it and seemed to be waiting. Good job, Nefertiti, I said, and she came closer and jumped on my shoulder. Looking at Elsa, I can tell that she had the best time of her life, being fluffed halfway to death. Nefertiti has torn her clothes and shred her flesh to the point where Elsa can only be described as a person of a horror movie. Damn, this stupid cat made a score on that poor girl. Joel spotted Elsa and started checking her around. Idiot woman, know your place. While us three were looking coldly at the half-dead Elsa, Alina seemed to be in distress. I know we talked about this and I agreed to it, but I never thought it would be this messy, Alina said. Even though she was blindfolded, she could tell the area around her and smell the reek of the blood. She was a bit reluctant when it comes to torture, but I left Joel to guide her around the whole process so she would be fine and mentally ready. She joined a lot of fights and killed many people before, but she wasn't into torturing and killing slowly. Still, she has a very awesome aptitude to that anyway. It's okay, sister. We will just fry her little brain and be done with her for good, an eye for an eye, you know. In your case too, though. Joel kicked Elsa to wake her up and came to guide Alina into position. I stepped forward to the naked bloody girl and grabbed her neck to carry her up. Weak screams came from her mouth, but one slap was enough. I still had to heal her enough for her to remain strong for what Alina is going to do. After a bit of healing, the wounds on Elsa started to close up and her consciousness was fully regained. You monsters, leave me, monsters," she started crying while calling us monsters. I wanted to retort and say she is the monster, but I came to a moment of realization and thought about it. By a smear, she is right. We are monsters. As I said so, the other three also seemed to have come to the same realization. I am a Dragonborn, that's pretty much enough to qualify me for monsterhood. Jelinar can be herself, and that is considered a monster too. Nefertiti is the fluffiest monster, no argue about it. And Alina can be a newbie in the field, but her new eyes qualify her to monsterhood splendidly. Okay, enlightenment time is over. Time to do the monster work. I pushed Elsa on her knees in front of Alina and held her head straight. Jul came behind Alina and closed their heads together from the back. "Sister, you ready?" Alina was still conflicted. Jul hugged Alina tightly and intimately, which rather seemed a bit sexy. "This is beyond what is good and bad, sister. This is your justice, my justice, John's justice, that cat's justice, and Wolfer's justice too. We were all harmed by that bitch. We have seen unsightly nightmares before John comes for us. Not to mention what happened to you now, you are the only one who can give her a taste of it. Would the woman of John chicken out here?" To Jul's swaying words, Alina's held her breath and her anger swelled up. Jul smiled once she sensed Alina's change of atmosphere and started untying her blindfold. "She is all yours." Jul said so while kissing Alina's cheek, then stepping back with Alina's blindfold. Alina's shut eyes opened slowly and met with mine. As usual, her eyes have no power over me. The one who tensed up was Elsa. Her body twisted and deep groans came out. Strange changes started appearing too. The blood vessels on her neck started lining up as if a black liquid was running through them and became visible. Her eyes started tearing blood. Her mouth was shut tightly to the point where her teeth crushed each other. I didn't expect to see that. This was just an eye contact. In Quagmire, the wolf and Jul felt a strong strike of pain and fell off their feet, but this is far more powerful than that time. Elsa was being tortured to a point I have never seen before. Alina was shaken for a bit, but she managed to hold up and keep still. She then spoke up. "Stay still." To Alina's words, the squirming Elsa froze while groaning. "Shut up." To Alina's words, the groaning Elsa didn't utter a sound. I was curious and used a bit of my mystic arts to see what does that girl see. I tried to get how she feels with a bit of magic. I got an image of her eyesight with my Eye of the Mind spell. Alina was seen from that girl perspective. Alina spoke up once again. "You are in the dark all alone." With these words, what Elsa saw was a dark space with only herself and two glowing red eyes. "You feel your body being torn, but it is all intact." The nervous signals of Elsa started receiving foreign orders and reacted to them. I didn't feel what she felt, but her body was probably feeling to all these orders that were being transmitted through the red eyes. Amazing! You feel ants crawl under your skin. The nervous system of Elsa reacted once again. "You are being eaten. You are being shredded. You are being devoured. You are being frozen. You are being burned. You are being frozen. You are being burned. You are being frozen. You are being burned. You are being frozen. You are being burned." Alina went all out. I never expected to see all that. The nervous system of Elsa was reacting in such a splendid way to Alina's words. I cut the line and returned to observe the effect on Elsa's body. God damn! This went beyond all sense. Even though Alina's power are illusions, her eyes were making the reality inside Elsa's body shift. Just like how Quagmire does. This is way too overpowered than what I could even think of. I looked at Alina, who seemed to have exhausted herself, and closed her eyes. She kept Elsa alive while doing all that torture. This thing about her being a newbie in monsterhood, we need to talk about that. Chapter 194 Visitors. A few days ago, we left the Moonblade clan grounds with an aura of innocence and peace. No one suspected us to know anything about what happened with Elsa Moonblade. The matter became a shock after Elsa was found in her cell between life and death. The whole Moonblade clan started searching for the maidservant that was the last person who saw Elsa, but no girl with such description was found. Of course, no one can even know that Nefertiti can turn into a human now. It was only me, Alina and Jull who know that. Of course, Elsa was taken out of that cursed tower, and all sort of mages examined her condition. The wounds that should have come from outside were all from inside. The experts in medicine among the Moonblades were shocked senseless from what they saw. All agreed that no human can inflict such damage. To them, this was the work of something mysterious. Of course, I was suspected from the very first second, but my alibi was solid. Most of the Moonblades saw me all over the fort that day guarding Alina's chambers, or some illusion I created to fool them. After the inspection was over, 2 rumors were being spread. The first was that Elsa got claimed by the evil Daedra that should have taken Alina. This is the one I started spreading. The other rumor was that Elsa got punished by Kine for assaulting her favored child, and that one was probably spread by Sigurd. Regarding Elsa's condition, I can estimate that she lost her mind. She was healed, but her body was crippled and her mind went cocoa. She doesn't even react anymore, but sometimes she starts screaming and always see nightmares. Sigurd kept looking at me as if I am some sort of a monster that time, but he almost cried when he knew that this was Alina's handiwork. He was so shocked that he spent the day all pale. This man's health is a matter of concern now. I can tell that his heart is becoming weaker since the day he got to know me. Anyway, we decided to leave the Moonblade clan this morning and rode to Winterhold accompanied by a lot of guards from the Dare Dragon Company and the Moonblade clan. Alina was riding with me, by the way. As we are officially engaged, we can interact more from now on, which was rather nice. I wonder why Master didn't come to check on us when we went missing? Alina asked. I was curious too. Still, I gave it some thought, and it seemed that she forced herself to stay. Forced herself? We are her only apprentices, and you are her son. Why would she? I thought for a while, but I could only think of one reason. It probably has something to do with Grandmaster. Alina paused for a while. I am so envious you got to meet our Grandmaster. I know. Once Alina found out that I met our Grandmaster and our Great-Grandmaster, she almost fainted and started crying and kicking around. She is that type of person who craves to see the more knowledgeable people and discuss our art with them. Missing the chance to meet our Grandmaster was more tragic to her than getting her eyes blessed by Vaermina. She kept nagging me to tell her the identity of our Grandmaster and Great-Grandmaster, but I am sure she won't handle the shock. I myself wouldn't have handled if Nurina wasn't kidnapped by Alf back then. Just don't make such a heartbroken face. If you ever meet her in the future, just turn to the other direction and run. She isn't the monster I would want to cross myself. Humph. Impossible, I would get cursed once again to oblivion if I don't. Yeah, act haughty all you want just because there is a Dragonborn who is foolish enough to go through oblivion and bring you back. I'll be relying on you then. This girl. She is becoming more comfortable with me. A bit of time passed and Alina spoke again. You also promised me you would find a way for me to open my eyes again. And Jull's eye too. About that. Yep, I have some ideas on how to do that. I thought about the matter really deeply. Looks like I will get busy once I head back home. What are the chances? For Jull. I mean. Not that bad. I have acquired a book from Grandmaster and a lot of progress will be made in my techniques from now on. The more I think about it, the more possibilities come to my head. Even regrowing limbs is not that much of a problem, in theory, of course. I said, and Alina seemed to be surprised. Being in theory means it is still possible. Yes, the problem is the amount of energy we need. Luckily, I am working on a major project that will change the way we use magic and open up many great possibilities. I can't wait to be your assistant. Alina seemed excited and stuck to me. Unlike Joel and Wolf, who can't stand studying, Alina can research for days without getting bored. It was very nice to have another weirdo who shared the same hobby as me. When I arrived at this world, researching magic was like me when I got my first computer when I was young. Discovery was my sole drive back then. The new generations, especially those damn brats that were born after year 2000, may not have the same feeling we older kids had, but I fell in love with computers so much. It all happened again with magic, but it was rare to see a nerd like me, yet Alina was that nerd. And about us sharing notes of research is not a simple decision. Each mage's notes are more sacred than their family members sometimes, and sometimes even couples don't share these notes together. Alina and I were very willing, though. And that reminded me of the last piece of sketch I was working on. About your problem. I mentioned to Alina her eyes problem. What about it? I have something in mind, but I will need all hands on deck. That includes Nerina. I am really not that distressed, John. I can already use my aura to see 10 meters in all directions. It will make everyo. TSK. This thing I have in mind is not just for you but also for me. My soul needs it, you know? Is it something weird from your sketchbook? Oh, you know about that? Yeah, Joel told me that you showed a sketch to Wolfer and he held it as if he saw the third volume of The Lusty Argonian Maid. Wolfer would feel so embarrassed if he heard this one. The Lusty Argonian Maid is a famous novel in this world, but the third volume is very rare. Only collectors like myself have it. I saved it long ago when it was about to be auctioned in Riften in some dark auction. One of the reasons why Katatosker name is so famous. And speaking of Wolfer, he was riding at the back while talking with Brenda, my cousin. Hey, Big Wolf! I called for him, and he rode beside me and Alina. Lord and Lady Lovebirds, how can I be of service? And he is in a good mood too. When we reach Winterhold, you are going to cook me something, I said. Cook? You know I am not that much of a wait. What are the ingredients? Moonstone, malachite, and quicksilver. Wolfer paused for a while with his eyes opened wide. For that? He realized what I wanted. Yes, this is the best combination for enchantments, right? But that is too hard. Even for my skill, this is beyond me. Come on. I will gather the best materials and personnel for you. I am even bringing some rarities from my vault. Wolfer understood what I meant, but he felt conflicted and excited at the same time. It all appeared on his face. He thought that it would be a waste of materials if he worked on it or something along those lines. Maybe you should invite Ireland Greymane. This is really beyond me. Wolfer was backing down for the first time. Sigh. You will do it like it or not. I am not really in a pinch, and we can use different material if this didn't work. Wolfer nodded and said he will think about it. He seems very troubled? What is that you are making? Alina asked. A special alloy for my special ladies, I said while looking at her and Joel. And I suppose it is a surprise. Yep. I'll be waiting then. Alina turned around and kept the cool attitude, but I could feel her cheeks curving into a smile. 2 days after that, we arrived at Winterhold and found a lot of expected and unexpected visitors waiting for us. The firemans, and on top of them were mother and father, also the master alchemist Neurelian and his apprentice Quintus Navale, a Stormcloak messenger and an imperial envoy, and there was also some messages from Sviti and John Battleborn delivered by an unexpected face, Lizette. Sigh. I guess I should ask Lord Divaith FYR about making me some clones. This is so busy. Chapter 195 Vittoria Vici. The Dare Dragon Group now owns the biggest building in town. Just between the Jarl's Longhouse and the new market area, a 4-story building built with the urban techniques brought to this world by a certain otherworlder. This building was wide and big. It had a lot of offices which were mostly busy all day long. Most of the employees from the management and the financial departments were mostly stationed here in the first, second and third floors. My office has completely taken over the 4th floor. It is not me being bossy or anything, I just decided that all the archives and the important files should be kept near to the secretary room, and also I wanted a meeting and a CEO office in the most modern way possible. It ended up looking really good, and I got praised a lot by Nerina, who filled for me the last 2 weeks. Now, in this 4th floor, a lot of people gathered up and were mostly glaring at each other. On the head of the table was the powerhouses of Winterhold, which are mostly the senior executives of my company. Jarl career was called over. On the right side, there was the Imperial Envoy, who is apparently called Viscount Lucius, accompanied by a Nord Legion officer referred to as Legate Thorvar, and the Imperial businesswoman Vittoria Vici. On the left side, there was the messenger from Windhelm, Captain Mislav Stonecrusher, accompanied by Ralof of Riverwood. At the end of the table was the firemen's, and on top of them there was Uncle Njord. Father and mother were not showing their faces and sat behind him. The overall atmosphere in the room was like a ticking bomb. The Imperial Envoy was glaring at the Stormcloak messenger, Vittoria Vici was glaring at me, Njord was glaring at Legate Thorvar, Ralof was glaring at Julliner, Nefertiti was glaring at the food on the table. All in all, everyone was glaring at something for some reason. I tried to find something to glare at, but it seems that I had nothing left to glare at me back. Soon after, someone finally ended the glaring contest. I suppose you are John Dare. You made us wait for 3 days. 3 days in this godforsaken wasteland. It was the Imperial Envoy Viscount Lucius who spoke first. What a rude tone. Thane John Dare, it is an honor to finally meet you in person. The Stormcloak messenger Captain Mislav took a different approach. The honor is mine. As I replied, Captain Mislav grinned at Viscount Lucius. I understand that all the parties in this room insisted on having a meeting as soon as possible. So, what is the urgent matter? The urgent matter is about Winterhold. This place is slacking on taxes, refusing to provide recruits, hiding details from the periodic reports to Solitude, and as soon as I arrive here, we find that the whole hold is under monopoly by a single entity. Viscount Lucius started shouting around. This man. Is he trying to provoke me? I could see the Imperial Legate beside him sighing while Vittoria Vici was nodding to his words. This group is not rhyming well. I see. These matters are mostly for the Jarl to take care of, isn't that right, Jarl Career? It certainly is, Career replied. And also if there are any complaints about the Dare Dragon Group, you can file it to the legal department of our company on the 2nd floor, office number 2, Mrs. Roz. The Imperial Envoy looked at me as if I said something strange. Legal department. What is that for? Vittoria Vici asked. It consists of highly educated employees known as lawyers. They have studied all the laws of the Empire and the Kingdom of Skyrim, and they make sure that all our actions are within the law. They also receive the complaints of any official envoy, and they hold a lot of authority to even put my actions within the company on hold. This is how awesome my small army of lawyers is. You think I would be reincarnated without spreading the holy occupation of lawyers. Law is mostly practiced by the high members of the community, and they are mostly the ones people refer to as nobles. In Cyrodiil they are the regular noble from counts and viscounts through all the ranks, and in Skyrim, it is they jarls and thanes as well as the other official titles. To have a legal department like mine is a bit unthinkable. How can normal people practice law that is mostly monopolized and abused by high-ranking members of society? Maybe nobles in this world are actually nobles and treat the people fairly, unlike how it used to appear in the works of fiction I read in my past life, but people always find ways to degrade others. And now, as I gave some commoners the power of knowledge about law, I can be seen as someone who cheated and cheated very badly. They should have realized by now that I can't be cornered when it comes to the validity of my actions. Everything is crystal clear by law. The Imperial envoys backed down a bit to think of a comeback, while the Stormcloaks decided to play this time. By the way, Thane John, I noticed a new temple being built in town. Will there be a shrine for Talos? Ralof asked. This was a direct question. Even the Imperials looked at me waiting for an answer. Sadly. No, it pains me, but the worship of Talos was outlawed by the Empire. My answer made the Imperials look at me as if I said something strange. It seemed that they were expecting otherwise. The Stormcloaks, however, seemed to be provoked. Outlawed? Are you seriously saying that? I just did, you heard me. How could you? And you call yourself a Nord? I do. All the sides on the table felt conflicted. I could see Njord looking at me and asking what the hell did I just say. Then, Thane John, which divine is that temple dedicated to? Vittoria Vici asked. I looked at her with a smile. For Kine. Kine? Everyone in the room was taken aback. Of course they should. In this day and age no one worships Kine openly anymore. Kine is part of the old Nordic divines and later was replaced by Kinnereth in Alessian doctrine that was set by the Empire. As the Empire, this kind of worship was long since gone. Even the Stormcloaks were looking at me strangely. Talos didn't exist in the old gods, but there was another aspect of him, and that was a smear. Gods are a bit tricky, they can be the same entity but they have different aspects and each aspect has its own personality. For example, Kine is an aspect of the warrior goddess of the storm. She was worshipped back in the days when most of the Nord women were warriors fighting alongside men in every battle. On the other hand, Kinnereth is another aspect that is associated with the sky and mostly healing. She replaced Kine when the Nordic women started to tend to their homes and left battles for the men. Another example is Arche, in the Alessian doctrine. He is the god of death in the ceremonial meaning and is associated with the circle of life and death. In the old Nordic religion, Arche is Orki, the god of death in the sense of a grim reaper. Orki was the sole reason why humans live shorter than elves, as he cursed them once to live shorter. If not for the efforts of Esmir and Shor, who managed to defeat him, the human lifespan would have fallen to 6 years old. Anyway, reverting to the old gods such as Kine, Esmir and Shor is not a crime, but no one do that practice anymore. The Empire won't really care about it, and the Stormcloak may also welcome it as a comeback for the glorious gods of the past. The only ones who will see this as a provocation are the Thalmor, and they will try to do something about it for sure. These Nordic gods are the adversaries of the elven gods and part of the reason why the worship Talos, who is very connected to the old Nordic gods, is being outlawed. In the eyes of everyone, I actually did nothing wrong. Actually, the hidden clans are mostly Daedra worshippers or old Nordic gods worshippers, the main reason why they are hidden and think of themselves as peaceful cult. In both religion and law, I am in the green zone for these parties. Also, in Winterhold we respect both law and freedom, even if there is a member of the worshipper of Talos or even a worshipper of a Daedra, we wouldn't act like the vigilance or the law officers. However, if we can resolve these matters peacefully, why even start discriminating each other? Everyone is free to worship and free to love as long as they don't bring harm to the others or break the law. Closing these matters like that will force the two parties to go back to their factions first and come up with another plan later. Very well, this will pose no problem then. Viscount Lucius backed off reluctantly. Captain Mislav nodded and seemed to be rather disappointed that he couldn't draw me to Ulfric's side. I want to talk about something rather important. This time, it was Vittoria Vici. She didn't look at me and directed the talk to Jarl Career. My Jarl, when we asked around Winterhold lately, it seemed that all the resources and the economical spots were rented to the Dare Dragon Group. Mind telling me how did that happen? Her question was not direct. She just asked about how Career gave me the power to act in the place as if is my own backyard. It was through Thane John's effort that Winterhold managed to take the road once again towards a better future. I was very pleased and decided to give Thane John all the important matters only a remarkable man like him can attend to, and here we are, haha. Jarl Career replied with a wide smile. Vittoria Vici made an innocent face and directed another question. But wouldn't it be more beneficial for Winterhold to create a competitive atmosphere? I am sure Thane John wouldn't mind have my small company to start some business around these parts. I will make sure that Jarl Career will see these benefits firsthand too. This bitch. Alina and Jull, who were about to release their killing intent. This girl tried to lure Career with benefits and wanted to make a foothold in Winterhold. With no shame or honor, trying to press Career with her identity, and she thought that I don't know who is she. As a matter of fact, I received a report that she paid a visit to Career and introduced herself to him with her real identity, not the so-called small company owner she is playing now. Still, how can I not know one of the most important NPCs in the game? I guess I should make things clear at this point. How can Miss Vittoria's business can be called small? I said with a smile. You are exactly the last person I want in Winterhold. Haha. The Imperials glared at me, but they managed to hold themselves back in the end. Thane John, please don't overestimate me. If not for my connection with Lord Lucius here, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to be in this meeting. I see. So, the chief executive of Skyrim's branch of the East Empire Company and the cousin of Emperor Titus Mede too needs a connection to meet with a mere citizen like me? To my words, both the Imperials and the Stormcloaks jumped on their feet and placed their hands on their hilt. If I am not careful during the next few minutes, the Civil War may start 4 years too early. Chapter 196, The Demands, 1. I forgot to mention that the novel got renamed because of the sites that started to steal my novel as of late. It made them get confused, but those guys still found out. Also, sorry about yesterday, even Daedric princes catch flu. I see. So, the chief executive of Skyrim's branch of the East Empire Company and the cousin of Emperor Titus Mede too needs a connection to meet with a mere citizen like me? To my words, both the Imperials and the Stormcloaks jumped on their feet and placed their hands on their hilt. The tension was as high as Mt. Anther, and it seemed that it is not going to turn out really well. Vittoria Vici was looking at me with eyes wide open. Viscount Lucius took out a staff from his robe, and Legate Thorvar put his hands on his sword's hilt. They all were wary of the Stormcloaks on the other side of the table. Speaking of them, they also stood up with their hands on the hilts of their swords while glaring with murderous spirit at Vittoria Vici. TSK, TSK, TSK. And I thought better of you folks. On a table of diplomacy you guys would glare at each other with such rudeness. How shameful! I couldn't help but mock them out loud. These hotheads were really going for it. The cousin of the man who sold Skyrim and Talos to the elves is right in front of us. How can you just ask us to remain silent? Captain Mislav said while looking with hate at Vittoria Vici. Watch your tongue. What you said just now is a high treason to the Empire. If not for the Emperor's understanding nature, the likes of you would have been purged long ago. The likes of me? You filthy Imperial dog. After all, what your Empire has done, you still dare to lecture me? Humph. Barbaric folk like you are the reason why the situation is like this from the start. Why don't you just go and make your ears pointy like your elvish masters? Bunch of cowards. Dirty barbarians like yourself shouldn't be allowed to. These people were taking it too far. With a snap of my fingers, the situation changed dramatically. Hilda waved her axe at the Imperial Legate blocking his path. Jonrad drew his golden blade at the Stormcloak messenger. Wulfur held a small knife on the neck of the Imperial envoy, and Jull aimed her crossbow at Ralof. Such a nerve! To dare and aim your weapon at me, an Imperial envoy! Viscount Lucius glared at Wulfur, who gazed back at him coldly. John dare? This is a stupid move. Legate Thorvar said. I knew you are that killer from that day. Ralof was glaring at Jull. The tension reached its peak. You bunch! You were thinking of waving your weapons at each other under my roof? Does my presence worth shit to you? So you so-called diplomats are just some mad dogs in the end. I was genuinely pissed. Starting a fight in Winterhold meant that this area will get marked for trouble. I knew from the start, but both the Empire and the Stormcloaks think so little of Winterhold. These trash. I only stirred some muddy waters, and now they want to make it into a flood. You bad-mouthed the Nords to your heart content since the minute you showed up here. Don't you think that I don't know how you tried to investigate the origin of my technologies, and even tried to interrogate some of my men about the soaring flame? I faced Viscount Lucius with facts. And you tried to make the native Nords act against the non-Nords, and went to snoop around Jarl Career to convince him to join Ulfric's shit show. I also directed some of the facts to Captain Mislav. These two were actually very busy since the time they showed up in Winterhold and were working hard to stir trouble for me. If not for my Team Zero, things would have taken a bad turn. I was gazed at with a lot of discontent and negativity by the two envoys. The Empire's orders are abs. Jarl Ulfric wants you to. They tried to retort at me at the same time. Both the Empire and Ulfric can go and suck a bag of dicks for all that I care about. To my words, all the parties fell silent. I made a clear statement. The two forces only work for their own benefits. I know very well that they will try to rip my stronghold in Winterhold apart as soon as they get the chance. The Dare Dragon Group rose to power in a desolate location and didn't attract any attention. Within only 1 year, it now controls 1/9 of Skyrim's landmass, and the populace is growing at a drastic rate. Most of the Dark Elves in Windhelm and the worshippers of Talos, who are being chased by the Thalmor, chose Winterhold as a safe haven. Even a small settlement was constructed near to Whispering Mine for the Dark Elves who wanted to live near the Shrine of Azura. As a new power with that size rises, the other power will be worried and act against it right away. When I killed all the spies of the Empire, the Stormcloaks and the other forces when Alina and the rest disappeared, it made them all realize that they have underestimated the Dare Dragon Company. This is why a ginormous whale like the East Empire Company has sent its branch manager of Skyrim, Vittoria Vici, to investigate us. Actually, if the reports are accurate, Vittoria Vici just arrived at Skyrim during the last King's Tournament that I didn't attend. She and her mother, Alexa Vici, had a meeting with Maven Blackbriar, and they seemed to have hit it well. As all the parties managed to get a grip of their temper, we all sat down once again. Silence took over for a while, and the two parties realized that I already know their game and there is no point to hide poison in the honey anymore. As we were about to talk once again, the door to the meeting room opened and my secretary rushed in informing me with some new participants in the talk. What are you doing keeping them out? Let them all in. Quickly. This is not the type of people I should keep waiting. As soon as she went out, some people clad in clean expensive robes came in. On the lead were Nurina and Savos Aran, followed by Tolfdir and the new head of the Destruction Magic Major, Faralda. There were 4 more individuals, 2 Nords, a Khajiit and a Wood Elf that I didn't recognize. They were all old men with massive beards, except the Khajiit of course. He had a glorious mane. From the air around them alone, I could tell that these are all archwizards. Summing it up, 6 archwizards and 2 master wizards. One of them is a half step away from becoming an archwizard. The hell is this formation? The weakest among them should be Faralda, and she can pretty much hand me my ass if she got serious. Who on Nern are these people? These are the hidden masters from the college. They are considered above that of the archmage in position, and mostly hermits who live in seclusion. They are also the ones who helped me survive this long in and incorporeal state. The augur was the one who answered me. Such a thing actually exists. They don't feel as powerful as Lord Divaith Fyr, but their auras are equivalent to Nurina and Savos. Why in the world are those monsters here? The newcomers came in and sat in a corner of the room. Everyone could tell that these 8 are here to observe, as the only action they took was nodding for us to continue. With the powerful feeling they gave off and Nurina's known status as my master, these people were on my side. Eventually, everyone silently sat down. Each group gathered their heads together and started to think of the situation. A power arose, but it was still small and meaningless. Then 2 hidden clans joined the fray and supported the new power, making it able to be a small, strong force. The plan was to oppress them fast and drag them to a side, but a new player move. The College of Winterhold, that normally didn't participate in any sort of a power struggle, showed its full power. No one was ready for this change of events. All they could do now is play it plain and throw all the cards on the table. We have demands. The Empire has demands too. We will hear them. If they are unjust, then don't blame our rudeness. As I replied, the people on the table turned gloomy once again. I then pointed to the Stormcloak messenger to speak first. Very well. Jarl Career, as the ruler of Winterhold, we ask you to open the docks for our ships and allow us to resupply and pass through the northern waters. Captain Mislav directed his words to Jarl Career instead of me. It seemed they still had some hope that Career would work against me. But I can't make things difficult for John Dare. That's what Career replied with. Everyone other than my inner circle looked at Career with eyes wide open. What kind of reply was that? This man, if he could just be swayed to any side, he can strip me from my title as a Thane and end the contract with the Dare Dragon Company. To them, he was just stubborn, but they finally noticed what is wrong. J. Jarl Career, this is unrelated to Thane John. We just asked. I can't make things difficult for John Dare. Career answered with the same words once again. The Imperials and the Stormcloaks looked at each other, trying to figure out what is going on. Jarl Career, all we as. I can't make things difficult for John Dare. I just can't. I can't make. It seems that Career. Yexi is not responding. The scene became a bit bizarre, just like I wanted it to be. Program 2, reboot? I only said those words. Career, who was glitching, stopped all of a sudden. The mental burden seemed to have overheated the circuits in his bean-sized brain. With just that, Career turned normal once again. The light of understanding shone on the room. Career was now proven to be nothing but a doll in my hands. Captain Mislav clicked his tongue and looked at me. Once a puppet, always a puppet. To his words, I just smiled in return. Career was a sorry piece of garbage that sold Winterhold for pirates. No one had pity for the likes of him, and the mystery about me controlling him was solved, or rather became more mysterious. Swaying him with money or anything is now impossible. Sigh. Thane John. Captain Mislav gave up and looked at me. If you want to pass through the northern waters, then it's all good and fine. According to the law, these waters only belong to Skyrim, which means everyone has the right to navigate through them. However, things are different about the coastline. We can only allow trading ships. Any military ship or operation near the coastline with no further approval is a direct aggression. Fair enough. Captain Mislav nodded. The Empire would like to send reinforcements to Fort Castav south of Winterhold. Viscount Lucius. As a Thane and a law enforcer of the great kingdom of Skyrim and the Empire, I would pretty much welcome more stability and security to the hold I serve in. Still, the fort would always demand supplies and recruits at a low cost. I would welcome the idea in any time of stability, but right now I would prefer to set up some rules and numbers. Great. I would send the fort commander and inform him of all the details. Viscount Lucius replied. This concluded the first round, which was rather peaceful. Chapter 197 The Demands 2. From now onward, there will be no publishing on the side novel. All the plus 18 content will be posted here. The first round of demands was concluded rather peacefully, not sure about the following ones though. The other thing we demand is to allow the worship of Talos and prevent the Thalmor from carrying out any genocide against our brethren. Here it comes. Before I could reply, Viscount Lucius butted in. The Empire demands to keep the ban over the worship of Talos and not commit any breach to the terms of the White Gold Concordat between the Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion. The two glared at each other as their demands clashed. I had to make my standing clear then. As a neutral side in the struggle between the Empire's faction and the Talos faction, your requests pose threat to our standing. It is true that the worship of Talos is banned by law, but that doesn't mean I am enforcing such a thing as controlling what people worship and what they believe in. Therefore, any public construction of any shrine dedicated to the divine Talos will be considered a felony, and its punishment is imprisonment. However, any act of worship to the divine Talos behind closed doors is not a thing we can control, and we would rather not get involved. This was my standing. What about the Thalmor? Ralof asked. I don't have the authority over any law enforcer dispatched by the consent of the Empire. The Stormcloaks and the Imperials both glared at me. It would be much better for both sides if I took a hostile standing against the Thalmor. But, as a Thane with limited authorities, I am not responsible for their safety if anything unfortunate happened to them while they are in Winterhold. The killing intent behind my smile was clear. I am not going to officially act against the Thalmor. This will make the Thalmor force the Empire to act against me. The game of politics in this world was rather simple, so I am not going to fall for such an obvious trap. In my past life, I lived in Egypt, which was the hub of all political drama in the Arab countries. Nations like the Arabian Gulf states, Palestine, Iran, Libya, Yemen and Syria were all around Egypt both geographically and politically. As Egypt was at the center, I was pretty much familiar with the inner struggles of those nations had in their inner factions. Also, the superpowers in my past life used to play a game which was very simple to understand. It was called Divide and Conquer. Just highlight a small faction of people and demonize them with propaganda. This small faction will naturally grow tired of the persecution and convert into the creed of radicalism. Then wars will start in these nations where the superpowers don't want to invest any troops or money to conquer. Later, they would claim them under words like having shared borders or peacemaking. The game was a cliché that an otherworlder like me would smell from a mile away, especially when it was being played by the Thalmor. Of course, the Empire understood that too, but the Stormcloaks are too hot-headed to even care about this fact. So far, Ulfric's actions have only brought nothing but harm to the people of Skyrim from the time of the Markarth accident and how he caused a massive faction like the Madmen of the Reach to become the Forsworn, the sworn enemies of Nords, and his demands that caused the Aldmeri Dominion to force the Empire and start the so-called genocide of the worshippers of Talos. With me stepping aside from officially clashing with the Thalmor, I have taken a different route than the Stormcloaks and showed that I am a friend to the Empire. The Stormcloaks will not understand that move fully and will translate it as I am just trying to be as partial as possible. The Empire, however, will translate my actions as opening the road for them while having some privileges on my terms. The future of Winterhold will take two different scenarios depending on who will control Skyrim in the future. Still, the power of Winterhold was fully recognized by now. The Imperials shared their thoughts together, and so did the Stormcloak. They all nodded, and with that, the second round was concluded. The third round was about to start, and it seemed that the Imperials and the Stormcloaks were about to clash in opinions again. I had to calm down the mood this time. "Miss Vici, I heard you got engaged to an old friend of mine, Asgir Snowshod from Riften." "Oh, it is true. Asgir and I got engaged lately after we were introduced to each other 4 months ago." "Oh, how amazing! I am almost envious at him. Someone with the status, the beauty and the intellect of Miss Vittoria sure have a lot of suitors." "Ahaha! You flatter me, Thane John. To this wonderful piece of news, I should prepare a worthy gift for Miss Vici." "Really no need. Lady Maven Blackbriar and Queen Elisif have already sunk me head to toe with engagement gifts." "How come you say that? Do you want people to say that John Dare is not generous to his friends?" I smiled and looked at Uncle Jord. "Captain Jord, you promised me that rare horse from the finest stable in Clan Vaermina, right?" "Oh, you want that?" Jord was taken aback and seemed confused. "That horse will be my gift to Miss Vittoria, the rarest horse breed in Skyrim, the snow horse, Frost." Everyone opened their eyes wide, but the firemen smiled wryly. Frost is a horse from a very unique and rare breed. It appeared in the game, and belonged to Maven Blackbriar. What I found out when I was at the clan that Maven made a deal with the firemans to buy this horse, but the deal was cancelled when the problem between the firemans and the Blackbriars arose because of me. Now, the horse that Maven wanted so much couldn't be hers. On the other hand, the Vici nobles were very friendly to Maven Blackbriar. Maven also had a good relationship with the Snowshod clan, and used them to establish her power in Riften. More to that, Asgir Snowshod was a sissy boy that got played well by Maven, and she made him put most of his clan's wealth in her business, then gave him a small management position. Asgir Snowshod and Vittoria Vici got their engagement arranged by Maven so that she can link her source of money and her connection with the Empire, which will provide her with a strong backing and immunity from any threat in Tamriel. With even the Thalmor's interference, Maven would be very much invincible, and that is bad news for me. Now, with me giving Frost to Vittoria Vici, Maven will be pissed off, but it won't change anything. At least, it would make for a good fraction between the East Empire Company and the Blackbriar clan, but that's a long-term game. Vittoria Vici and I started exchanging smiles and words of compliments until we arrived at the final play. "We would like to talk about Japhet's folly." With these words, not only the Imperials and the Stormcloaks, but also the Firemans and we from the Dare Dragon group participated in the glaring contest. This ripe fruit is the reason why everyone was here in the first place. Japhet's Folly is a very important place. It is the island where the last of the Bloodsails clan and the Blood Horkers pirates gathered. After their defeat in the Battle of Kynesgrove, the safest stronghold for these vermins was at this place. I was sending ships to patrol the area lately, and according to the reports from my people and the firemans, Japhet's Folly was also monitored by both the Empire and the Stormcloaks. The pirates and the remnants of the Bloodsails all gathered there with their treasures and money. They tried to hire Argonian pirates many times, but the Dare Dragon ships and the Fireman's fleet were openly confronting any coming and going pirate ships around Japhet's Folly. Still, that wouldn't stop the vultures from the Empire and the Stormcloak to lust over the treasures of the besieged pirates. "What about Japhet's Folly?" I replied in the most unfriendly tone possible. They all realized that this time, I wasn't trying to act peacefully and stand aside. These pirates have plagued the sea for years. Windhelm has lost a lot of resources and money to them. The East Empire Company also lost a lot of goods and personnel to those scum. On top of that, we were fighting them for years. It looks like the riches have blinded them. I silently stood up and rested my palms on the table, then spoke. "At times I hunt bandit. When I start looting the bandits and in accordance to law, I can loot whatever I want, even if it is some long-lost national treasure, and it will belong to me in the end. Now you lot want to take a share of the booty that Winterhold sacrificed its sons and daughters to secure? Thane John, we understand your feelings, but according to the law, we also have a claim. We don't plan to deny Winterhold of its claim as well. Captain Mislav stood up and glared at the Imperials, trying to say that it is a different story when it comes to Imperials. Thane John, beware the wrath of the Empire. We are indeed giving you a lot of face because we understand that you are the sole hope for a whole region in Skyrim. Still, we won't tolerate being pushed around. Viscount Lucius stood and glared at the Stormcloaks. These bastards won't budge, and whether side I choose to loot Japhet's folly with, the other will remember it and will be my enemy in the future. Were they trying to corner me into this choice from the start? These cunning foxes. But John Dare is not the one who will be forced to pick between one or two. John Dare will make three. And here comes the Thursdayum. Hi Tinvok Goltnu, you speak nonsense. Duziira. Insolence is the one thing I cannot abide. My people suffered for ages. For more than 70 years this land was plagued with pirates and thugs. Its people bled so much. They are citizens of Lokoltii of the Empire. They are true sons and daughters of King Iziel of Skyrim. And you, where were you? Did any of you offer a helping hand? No, nothing, worse than nothing. You made deals and paid fees so that the pirates let you off, and who bled because of these actions? Gevoldseed, Winterhold. My words, enforced by the Thursdayum, overwhelmed these greedy bastards in all aspects. One can speak the Thursdayum without causing any magic to be unleashed, but the words themselves will echo far and wide. With that, they who thought they are untouchable lost all their nerves in front of a dragon tongue. In the end, the meeting continued and I managed to avoid being forced on a side. After a few hours, the meeting came to a conclusion. When the summer arrives, 2 months from today, anyone who has a claim to the riches in Japhet's folly can sail to the island and try to take it by force. Whoever has the ability to claim them shall do so by their own force. Both the Empire and the Stormcloaks have large fleets, and they weren't afraid of the soaring flame ship as they knew it was powered by soul gems. I didn't give in to the temptations, as whoever I side with will make the other hold a grudge, and I really wanted no part in the war. As all the parties stood up to leave, Vittoria Vici approached me. Thane John, I was interested in discussing something in private. Oh, of course, Miss Vici. To my office? Very well. I led her to my office in the other room. Both Viscount Lucius and Legate Thorvar wanted to join, but she promised she wouldn't be late. After some time, John was sitting alone behind his office, closing his eyes and resting his head back, when he heard the door knocking. Come in. Boss, it is Legate Thorvar. Let him in. After a while, Legate Thorvar came into the room. Thane John. Miss Vici was here a while ago, but we can't seem to find her. Oh. She asked me for a pass letter to enter the college. She took the pass and left right away. Right away? As Legate Thorvar asked, John's face twitched for a second, but he soon managed to hold a grip. Here is another pass, you can go look for her over there. John offered Legate Thorvar a small piece of paper and smiled. He didn't even stand up, but his smile was cold, as if he wanted Legate Thorvar to piss off right away. Really no need. If Miss Vici is in the college, then there is no need to worry. Excuse me. I will take my leave. It seemed that John's show of his Thursdayum was still vivid in Legate Thorvar's mind, and he left the office directly. As he did so, John let out a sigh of relief and looked under his desk. See, I had to lie for your sake. Down there, a certain imperial girl sat on her knees between John's legs while polishing his spear with her mouth. It's though huge slurp, I cod tick mo nigh. It is so huge it could take me all night. Vittoria Vici, stripped of all nobility and dignity, spoke with little John in her mouth. John only smiled. Plenty of time, my sweet. Plenty of time. Chapter 198, The Fall of Vittoria Vici, plus 18. Maybe plus 21. John's show of his Thursday was still vivid in Legate Thorvar's mind, and he left the office directly. As he did so, John let out a sigh of relief and looked under his desk. See, I had to lie for your sake. Under his desk, a certain imperial girl kneeled on her knees and was polishing his spear with her mouth frantically. It's though huge slurp, I cod tick mo nigh. It is so huge it could take me all night. Vittoria Vici, stripped of all nobility and dignity, spoke with John's spear in her mouth. John only smiled. Plenty of time, my sweet. Plenty of time. John put his hand on Vittoria's head and started pushing his dick into her mouth. Vittoria's eyes were all tearful and she started snorting with each push to catch her breath. After he was fully ignited, John took out his dick from her mouth and left her up to rest. Asterisk cough cough asterisk, this is crazy. Will such a thing be able to fit in me? Vittoria looked at little John that was in its full power. The sheer size alone was just a shock for her. I am not sure about your sexual experiences, but something is telling me that you will try it anyway, John replied as he lifted her up and put her on the empty side of his desk. With fast hand movements, Vittoria was already naked in front of John. She had a sense of crisis, but she knew that there is no going back now. She was willing to do it for her goals, but she couldn't help but feel a bit scared. This will totally ruin me. Vittoria compared the size of John's dick with her forearm and exclaimed to herself. John's smile grew wider as little John, that was being cultivated with the essence of the trolls, got praised like that. He pushed his middle finger in Vittoria's mouth and made her suck it before taking it out to her wet pussy. She started moaning inwardly to not let her voice out. I have sealed the voices in this room, you can scream to your heart's content. John used telekinesis on his own hand and started to make it vibrate. Just as he did that, Vittoria's screams went out of control. Yes, like that, do it again. She fell on her back and started squirming while playing with her boobs and biting her nipples in front of John. He smiled as he saw that bitch in the heat act out to her heart content. John undressed right away and went over Vittoria, sticking his tongue in her mouth, and they got melted over each other in a big round of kisses. Vittoria was really an attractive brunette. Her skin was tan and her hair was silky brown. She also was tall and had a good build, which made John's size not seem too large compared to her. Even though she was an imperial noble and from a great house at that, she wasn't a virgin and seemed to be well experienced in sex, which made John wonder for a while. He had no time to think anyway and decided to kick off. He centered the tip of his dick on her vagina and she hugged him tightly, ready to take little John's full power. John pushed his dick in and Vittoria screamed. So big. My head. Going crazy. John didn't show any mercy and held Vittoria up while he was standing. She started to slide down all the way on his dick, and all sorts of moans escaped from her mouth. Just as he could reach her womb, John laid her back on the desk and held her legs high. Her awesome figure started giggling with each thrust John performed, and she was on hallucinating with her eyes going devoid of all color. She was completely under the effect of John's dick. John switched the position and turned Vittoria on her front with her but facing him. He couldn't help but slap that bouncy thing. Asterisk pa. Star. Who is a little bitch? Asterisk huff, just do it. Asterisk pa. Answer me. Aya. John slapped her bouncy ass once again and Vittoria screamed with pleasure. Say it. Asterisk pa. Star. Me. I am your little bitch. Well done. Here is your reward. John aimed his dick once again and penetrated her pussy deeper than before. Vittoria jumped up, drooling and tearing with a frenzied face. I like these expressions. John passed his hand over Vittoria's head and held the tip of her nose up by his middle and ring fingers. Oink for me. With madness all over her eyes, Vittoria couldn't resist the pleasure and started oinking for John. Her appearance was pitiful as John toyed with her as he wanted. She was having the time of her life and would give anything including honor and dignity for pleasure right now. Please, I am going crazy. I am becoming an idiot. Vittoria started losing all sense. She squirted many times already, but John was still as hard as ever. With his experiences with a pro like Alishka, Vittoria was pretty much a toy. Don't forget that you brought this upon yourself. I am sorry. Please. Please what, huh? I am not sure if you want to get fucked more or want to be relieved quickly. Come on, don't be shy. You are my little bitch after all. Please, ravage my slutty pussy with your fat dick. Foo-foo. So you still want more? Do it. Come in my pussy. I beg you, squirt your thick semen into my thirsty pussy. John was pleased with Vittoria's attitude and carried her up while fucking her. He then increased the speed and a strong load of cum went out into Vittoria's pussy, making her lose sense once again. John was still trying to pleasure himself too and didn't stop until his load was fully released in Vittoria, who was totally mind-broken at this point. She only hung her head to the side with a blissful expression. John carried her, then put her on his custom-made modern couch, and sat beside her. Her head was on his chest, and she was still having a nice dream. John looked at her and sighed. Sigh. It is your fault to overestimate yourself so much. Did you think someone like me can just be seduced that easily? John still didn't want to harm the girl, and he used some magic on her womb and pushed all his cum out. It would be troublesome if that girl got pregnant. He was still nice to her and started healing her with a powerful spell. Not a minute later, Vittoria came back to the world of the living. She looked around herself and saw her naked self beside John, who was also naked. She realized that she was completely and utterly defeated. Not only that, she was also completely tamed by him. She looked at John's handsome face meaningfully and felt conflicted about her defeat. Should she be happy that she experienced heaven, or should she be pissed at herself as she lost all leverage and instead got owned by John? John, who was resting his head and closing his eyes, sensed that Vittoria returned to consciousness and spanked her but once again. How was it? Vittoria felt bitter to admit it, but she rather enjoyed herself to a height she never knew before. She thought about how did she get herself into this mess from the start. 2 weeks ago, when she decided to take down the new force in Winterhold with the help of the Imperial Envoy of Castle Dor and Legat Thorvar, the administrator of Skyrim's Imperial Legion, she invested a lot of resources to send spies to Winterhold to get her the news about John Dare. She discovered that John Dare was raising a private force with mysterious magical technologies and really managed to expand far and wide in Winterhold. He was now the ultimate ruler behind the shadows in that hold. This was a situation that had to be dealt with quickly and swiftly. She was still the new appointed manager in Skyrim's branch of the East Empire Company, and bringing down John Dare, or even making him a subordinate, would be a very notable achievement with the anticipated rise of the Ulfric Stormcloak. But when she arrived at Winterhold, all sorts of difficulties rose up. Even though John Dare was absent from town, she could feel that a hidden hand was destroying everything she and her accomplices worked for. It was frustrating, but it was already too late to move as John Dare has returned, and it seemed that the Firemans, the force that fully supports John Dare, was also here, as well as a Stormcloak messenger. Before the meeting with John Dare, she had made an initial impression that all Nord diplomats are loud and brash. They would also not delve too much into politics and would rather insult each other than drink it aside, and mostly they would agree to disagree. John Dare, however, was playing with them in all aspects of politics and law. It was hard to think of him as a Nord but rather a cunning Breton. He played on every note and danced on every tone. He took what he wanted without worsening his standing with any major force. His way was as brash as Nord's but was annoyingly provocative, like those old officials from the White Gold Tower, the imperial palace. Rather than seeing him as a threat that need to be rooted, Vittoria took a liking on such a free thinker and decided to claim him for herself as one of her subordinates no matter what. The best way she could do it was to seduce him. That was an obvious and easy strategy. She did it like 100 times already and was mostly the reason why she, a 19-years-old noble girl, rose to the highest position an employee can reach in the East Empire Company. Her grandmother even taught her that all men would fall for a girl once she smiles and say some nice words to them, let alone seducing them sexually. Also, how hard can it be with her beauty and status? Still, John was not in that category. She miscalculated. She miscalculated badly. This guy already had his own army of wenches that he started his small empire with. She was so idiotic and inexperienced to not notice such an obvious thing. What in oblivion have I done? Vittoria felt defeated, but strangely she was not depressed about it. She could even feel more ecstatic with what happened just now. Her conflicted thoughts didn't make her notice that he was still in John's embrace while being naked together. She even stuck her head on his chest more. Subconsciously, she recognized him as a being that she can't go against. John, on the other hand, was sitting calmly while having Vittoria beside him and caressing her hair and fair skin. "That was not bad," he said. Vittoria didn't know what to reply with. "You seem to have a lot of experience in sex." Vittoria nodded. "Multiple lovers?" he asked. "Yes, back at Cyrodiil. I had some private lovers." John frowned. "Is that okay for a noble lady?" "It is not a new practice in some of Cyrodiil's closed circle, especially for a follower of Dibella." "Aha. I see now." It became clear now as Vittoria revealed that she is a follower of Dibella, the goddess of beauty and love, who has nearly a dozen different cults mostly devoted to women and artists, and some even to erotic instruction, which was a very common topic to Dibella's followers. This was mostly a public knowledge that John knew even before he got reincarnated. After all, Dibella is his favorite divine after Shor, Kine and Talos. Still, he asked a sly question. "How will Isgir feel about it though?" Vittoria smiled mockingly. "It is just a business marriage to tie up Eastern Skyrim with the East Empire Company to control any resource that Windhelm can use against the Empire. And if we spoke about Isgir, then he is just a shy, pitiful virgin." "Oh, I feel bad for him now. What about your toy boys?" I only managed to bring one with me in Skyrim as Asgent, but I am not really sure if anything will work on me now." She smiled weakly, then touched herself and whispered, "You completely ruined me." John giggled evilly. "Fine then, you can come find me if you want to play. I'll take you to your words, John." Vittoria spoke to John intimately, but the latter gazed back at her coldly and flicked her forehead with her finger, causing her to hold it from the pain. "Call me master." Vittoria's eyes widened, not expecting this humiliation. Still, something inside her made her submit in a second. With a horny look in her eyes, Vittoria buried her face on John's embrace once again. "By your wish, master. That's a good little bitch," John replied while patting Vittoria's head. After a short while, Vittoria started to stand up, but her eyes landed on little John. "Why is that, still standing?" "Don't mind it, I won't ask more from you tonight." Vittoria let out a sigh of relief, but her eyes never parted from little John that was still in full readiness. John moved his hand and pressed a button on the small table beside him. With that, the secretary girl entered the room without knocking, which almost caused Vittoria to panic. "I want you to help Miss Vici clean up and lead her home." The secretary nodded and started helping Vittoria with her clothes. John kept sitting on his couch until Vittoria left and the secretary came back to report to him. Even the Emperor's cousin couldn't escape from the boss's golden hand. The secretary said casually, "Thanks, Sev. I wasn't trying to say it is a good thing. This may cause us some serious problems." "Come on, you heard the girl yourself." She has a ton of lovers waiting for her in Cyrodiil, and with her being my little bitch, we will be able to get some valuable information about the movements of the East Empire Company and also about the Empire itself right from the source. Did you plan this from the start? Not at all. Who would have thought that this imperial spoiled noble girl would try to seduce me with her body? John kept chatting with the secretary casually even though he was completely naked. Actually, that girl is Sev, one of the first girls that got to work for John back when he started constructing the bathhouse. She was also one of the bathhouse's queen bees, the most expensive girls. It was when the management department got established that she decided to retire and asked to be one of the members of the management team. With her talent, she rose quickly and finally became John's personal secretary. Fine, now as we are all alone, please handle this, John said as he pointed at Little John. Sigh. Fine, but I will demand a raise, Sev said as she started to undress. Chapter 199 Nefertiti's Magic. I woke up the next day in my office beside Sev. Due to my late-night activities, everyone celebrated together and forgot about me. Jull and Nefertiti seemed to have crashed the night with Alina at my place, and the firemen's joined them too. Okay, what's on my schedule? Sev handed me my morning coffee and answered. A servant from the college came with a word from Lady Nerina. She is summoning at noon, so I pushed anything else after it. Good, I need to thank her for yesterday and inquire about those mysterious masters. There was that high elf elder that goes by Master Alchemist Neurelian. How do you want me to kick him away? Kick away? Are you out of your damn mind? Apologize to him for me, and tell him that I will meet him as soon as I finish up with Nerina. Okay. What about the firemen's? Leave them at the bottom of the schedule. Sev moved her quill on a piece of paper and nodded. Everything is in order, boss. Good. Is there any news from Team Zero? Nothing unexpected. The Stormcloaks left yesterday immediately and the Imperials are waiting for their ship to be loaded. They are expected to leave tomorrow. Glad to hear. It also seemed that your cat, HAA. I pointed a finger at Sev with a spark of fire on it. I mean her Meowjesty, phew. Her Meowjesty Nefertiti went on a hunt last night alone. A full moon night, huh? It is okay. I can sense her location anyway, so no need to keep an eye on her anymore. She is a big girl now. Noted. The last report is about some of the firemen sneaking to the bathhouse last night. I see. Did any one of them look like me? The report mentioned that the girls got confused when they saw someone how resembled you, but it seemed to be a baseless misunderstanding. How did you know about that? TSK. That bastard. Make 7 copies of that last report. Ask our craftsman to carve one of them on a plate of steel. How evil. I got you now. After picking a fast breakfast from a food stall in the newly established market square, I rushed to the college in a hurry. The one who received me was the second in command of the mysticism department, Lonath. You are late. Well, hello, stranger. Long time no see. Right back to you. I heard you did well with the diplomats from the Empire and Windhelm. Good job keeping it peaceful around here. Glad to be of service. What about you? What were you up to? I just arrived yesterday from High Rock with some new research paper. Lady Nerina said I can borrow you. TSK. Do I look like some pair of glasses you borrow from your friend? I am a businessman now, my time is. Smack. And some book landed on my head. I am sorry, Teacher Lonath. Call me whenever you are free. I followed her silently to Nerina's room with a gloomy mood and a bruised head. As we entered, I could see some people drinking tea together there. These were Faralda, Nerina, and the Khajiiti Archwizard, one of the 4 hermits from yesterday's. John, this is Elder Jonaud, Nerina said. I am John Dare. It is an honor to finally meet you, sir. The Cagiate elder opened his narrowly open eyes, which gleamed with a sharp light. Foo-foo. Good seedling, Jonaud is pleased to see you too, John Dare. Come, have a seat. Jo before the name means respected person. Jonaud heard that John loves cats, is that true? Jonaud asked in a third-person figure of speech like most of his kind. It is indeed true. Shame. Jonaud prefers dogs. Traitor to his kind. How dare he? To my change of expression, Elder Jonaud laughed. Ah, hairless ones. They can be very unreasonable. What is wrong if Cagiate like dogs, Dogs are fun to play tricks on. Ah. The traitor cat was having fun on his own. Anyway, Jonaud would like to thank you for safekeeping Winterhold and rebuilding it once again. It was something Jonaud wished for dearly, but the policies always prevented from helping. I am glad to be of service. Also, please convey Jonaud's regards to your grandfather Tormund. Tell him to come and have a drink with Jonaud if he is free. The hell? Why does this elder know that I am a firemane? I looked at Nerina, who wasn't really surprised or anything, but she didn't answer me. What is going on? Jonaud and Tormund are friends from way before the firemans leave Winterhold. We used to sniff moon sugar together when we were kids. He could even last more than Jonaud. Ahaha. So, drug addiction is a thing in my clan. Good to know. The old Cagiate kept cracking strange jokes and telling stories for almost an hour. My head almost fell from his lame old joke. I wanted to suggest for his name to be Dronaud. Dro means grandpa. The strange thing was that Faralda, Lonoth and Nerina were smiling with every joke as if it is that funny. I also had to laugh too. Being a student means you must laugh to every joke an elder teacher says, or one can say goodbye to his grades. After the old cat had his fun for almost an hour, his tone turned serious. John Dare, Jonaud has something to ask you about. Your familiar beast, the little one that was beside you in the meeting yesterday, can I see her? Of course, is there anything wrong? No, my friend. Jonaud is just curious about something. It seemed that this was the topic that he was after from the start. Still, why Nefertiti? Even Nerina seemed not aware of Jonaud's purpose, but she nodded for me that it is okay. All I had to do is to look to the side and gesture with my hand. A second later, Nefertiti popped up under Nerina's desk and jumped on my lap. Oh, so little one was here after all. Jonaud couldn't feel this little one at all. I know, even I can't feel her without the bond we share. Interesting. The fireman's bonds with beasts are fascinating. Much potential when used right. Used right. Foo-foo. Jonaud doesn't need to tell you something obvious. You understand so much already about magic and beasts. Why don't you tell Jonaud what you think? I am not really sure, but I know that mage sentry cats and some other intelligent creatures are able to tell magic apart, and some magical creatures has the ability to cast simple spells. Wait, are you saying that it is possible for Nefertiti to use magic? Jonaud smiled. Little one already can. What? Nefertiti can. I held her in my hands and looked to her in the eyes. Can you? She just tilted her head adorably. It doesn't seem that she can though, I said. Jonaud can tell. Little one can hide in the shadows without anyone finding out about her location, which is a magical ability she imitated from someone. Who do you think she imitated it from? From Jull? I asked. From you, dimwit, Nerina replied. Oh, I can do that, but still, that's an ability granted to me by the Shadow Stone's star constellation. Why would it? Oh, you said that she imitated. Jonaud is pleased that you are this perceptive. Cool. Does that mean that she can imitate my other magic and the Thursdayum in the future? Maybe not too perceptive. Jonaud seemed a bit disappointed. That time, it was Lonoth who spoke. Unlike humans, elves, bestfolk, Akavir and high-ranked Daedra, other creatures have limited access to magic or a natural ability to use a unique form of magic. I already know that. Jonaud thinks that little one has been influenced by you, John Dare. Jonaud can tell that little one can hardly be called a normal mage sentry cat anymore. I know about her abilities, but what does it mean for her to be influenced by me? Simply put it like this, little one is from a species of cats that is sensitive to both in the aspects of sensing it and getting affected by it. Little one has gained an ability related to the therianthropy and encountered strange energies which caused her ability to mutate even more. Something like an evolution. You can say that. So, what kind of magic she can use? Jonaud smiled and looked at Nefertiti closely. It is. Jonaud left Nerina's place, and I sat opposite to her. What was with him just now? I asked. Impressive, right? She said. I can tell, but why is he interested? And why did he came to tell me personally? Life is dull for those kinds of hermits. Didn't you hear the jokes he cracked? Faralda said. Yeah, thank goodness my head is still fine. Well, it is good that you only smiled. If you argued with a grandpa like Jonaud, he can go on forever. Nope, 1 hour is my limit. But what is his real identity? And those other 3 hermits from yesterday? I asked the question that was on my mind. They are the core part of the hidden force behind the college. They reside here, but they don't go in public. Hidden force? I thought the college is only an educational facility. It is, but there are generations of strong masters that grew up in this place, while some left to make a mark in the world, some stayed and decided to watch over the younger generations. I see. But why did they come to the meeting yesterday? Think of it as a way to thank you for keeping the town around their college safe from wars. If any problem struck, it will affect the students, and some massive quarrels may start. Good to know. Anyone above the rank of a scholar can get in touch with these hermits as long as one is willing to be part of the hidden force of the college. Your case is an exception, though. Faralda kept lecturing me about the hidden force and how important it is. It seemed that if not for them, the college would have been swallowed by the other forces a long time ago. It is logical and all, but where were these people in the game? Shouldn't they have appeared when the college was in its time of need? I guess I'd have to find out on my own. Still, for Nefertiti to be able to use that magic, I am impressed. My research can help her if you are interested. Lanath mentioned the important topic now. I am interested, of course. This is not just a thing that I can let slide by, I said as I played with the sleepy Nefertiti on my lap. To think that this cute, fluffy, adorable child can use one of the most fearsome types magic, the shadow magic. Chapter 200 Shadow Magic. Yes, an extra chapter because this is CH200 and we made 3M views. It has been and it still is a great memorable journey for me. Thank you for all the support and let's keep going. Asterisk, don't forget. What is shadow magic, one might wonder. Shadow magic is an obscure but powerful form of magic. It was first harnessed by Uzra Nightwielder, who was the first to discover that shadow was not simply an absence of light, but a reflection of possible worlds created by forces in conflict. Shadows can be produced by mundane forces such as light hitting a rock, or by more powerful forces such as nations at war. Shadow magic involves the manipulation of shadows to affect the forces creating it. In this way, shadow magic rivals even the power of the Elder Scrolls themselves, having the power to potentially change the past, present, and future through the manipulation of shadow. With shadow magic, shadows could be absorbed to strengthen one's self, or could be molded into physical forms, such as weapons. Shadow magic could also be used to visit other realms, to assist alternative versions of yourself and request their aid. Shadow mages are also capable of draining the life force and health from their foes. And if that is not enough for you, then I don't know what else is. Do you understand now? Homen mini. Nope, totally nothing. I forced Nefertiti to take her child form to train her on sensing magic, but the process is rather— how do I describe this? It is like swallowing an egg through the nose. John, who is that girl? Nerina asked. Nefertiti. Help me. Homen is a meanie. John, when did you start to abuse kids? Like, never. Nerina didn't even listen and pushed me to the side, then carried Nefertiti in her arms. Come here, cutie, Bad John was bullying you? I can beat Bad John 100 times for you. Just call me Mama. Oh boy. Her motherly instincts are activated again. This is not good. Don't beat Homen. Nefertiti stuck up for me. I knew she won't sell me. She even transformed back to her normal form and hid behind me. Wait. I still haven't had enough. To see such a cute child with cat ears and a tail. Oblivion take me, I could almost understand why John liked fluffy stuff. How on earth can anyone resist fluffy things? Just let me have one more look at her. Nerina looked at me with pitiful expressions. Just no touching or acting creepy, Nefertiti is sensitive. Fine. As she replied, I turned around trying to reach for Nefertiti, who was behind me. I can't seem to find her though. Where did she go? I looked around but I didn't see her anywhere. Did she go into stealth again? Nerina asked. No, I feel her, she is pretty close, way too close actually. It was a strange feeling, but it is actually strange. I moved around but she was still close. She is not in your pants, isn't she? Nerina said in a mocking tone. No, she prefers hoods. My pants is where my dragon is. Swoosh. You kiss your mama with that mouth. I just avoided a death blow in case, if you are wondering what the swoosh was. Just kidding, goddammit. Hold it, woman. There was a book resting deep in the wall behind me in case, if you are wondering about what made the swoosh too. Still, we were unable to find Nefertiti even with that strange feeling of her being very close. Homen. And now I am hearing her voice in my head. Okay, this is weird. I started moving around the room and scanning the area with magic, and so did Nerina. Nefertiti, where are you? Can my voice reach you? Homen. It is scary. Shit. Something is wrong. I started searching faster with an agitated feeling, but stop moving around. I was yelled at by Nefertiti's voice. Okay. What's wrong? She told me not to move. Why? I don't know. Hey, why are you looking at my butt? While I was answering Nerina, she averted her eyes and looked behind me. Not your butt, you dolt. Look over there. What she pointed at was actually my own shadow, which was having some black smoke coming from it. I felt a familiar feeling from the aura, that black smoke, and didn't feel threatened at all. A second later, a small black figure popped out from my shadow, and as you can't guess, Nefertiti. This is new. Nerina was taken aback. Homen. Don't leave me. Nefertiti meowed and jumped right to my face. This was the way she hugs people, so I hugged her back, on my face. Okay, calm down. What was that just now? Her answers were a series of meows which I started translating for Nerina. It seemed that she fell in my shadow once she tried to hide from you behind me. Fell. She said so. It was a new matter to discuss. No one falls in shadows unless it is a shadow magic. We looked at each other. But why now of all times? Yes, I mean we just started researching it. It can't be just a coincidence. Just like she said, it can hardly be this easy for Nefertiti to use shadow magic just as we started researching it. System, can you review my activity log since the moment we started researching? Confirmed. The system started to calculate it and showed me the result. There was a lot of useless stuff like how many times I breathed, and how many steps I walked from Nerina's place to my laboratory under the company's building. Then exclude everything except my interactions with Nefertiti and my magic activity. Confirmed. Another shorter screen appeared. Let's see. Could it be because I patted her like 100 times all day over to this place? I asked Nerina. Her gaze was piercing as ever. Nope, definitely not that one. Oh, I guess it is because I supplied her with a lot of magicka so she can be able to manipulate it. After a bit of argument, we decided that this is the right guess. Even though Nefertiti can sense magic, she barely had any magicka, and that's why I supplied her with mine. According to Nerina, with my strong magicka inside Nefertiti, she couldn't control it fully, and when she decided to hide behind me using the normal stealth technique she imitated from me, she accidentally activated a greater magic which she could meld into my shadow with. But that's not logical. How can she just use magic like that? Even Spriggans and vampires need to cast it as spells. I questioned. It's actually pretty logical. Logic doesn't really apply that well with shadow magic, and your cat has gone through a lot of weird events by simply following you around. So you are saying that me using logic to try and teach her magic is pretty much useless. I see. Just make sure that she builds up enough magicka for herself and to practice any shadow technique she arrives to on her own. Teaching her is useless, but inspiring her may work. Nerina gave me a lot of ideas. I may be knowledgeable, but I am a horrible teacher. That's why I admire Nerina. We have a lot of new stuff to do together now. I patted Nefertiti, who didn't seem to be happy about it. Why the long face? Magic is fun. Human is bad. And she just keeps going. Her personality is getting weird lately. After convincing her for some time, she changed into the child form again, and I showed her around the lab. Here, Alina prepared some clothes for you. Clothes are annoying. Just put whatever you like on, you can't keep going around in that oversized black shirt of mine. Else she would kill people with just her cuteness. Until now, she only wore a black shirt of mine that was actually pretty much big for her. She, however, loved it very much and looked super cute in it. Her left shoulder was exposed and her arms were not even coming out from the sleeves. It was devilishly cute, I tell you. Before we leave the Moonblade clan, Alina acted all motherly and packed all her clothes which she wore when she was a child and told me to give them for Nefertiti. Such an action is indeed something a caring girl like Alina would do on her own. Eventually, Nefertiti chose a black dress. Nerina kicked me out so that she can dress Nefertiti on her own. I was a bit worried and refused to leave, but my secretary came in. The guest has arrived, boss. Oh, he is here. Who is here? Nerina asked. Master Alchemist Nerilian. Nerina raised her brows and blinked a few times. How did you manage to make someone like that come to visit you? Maybe by helping him achieve one of his life's great goals, then leave some question marks behind to attract his interest. Kid, you know what? I don't even want to know. A high elf master alchemist? His kind can be counted on the fingers of one hand. Nerina had too much on her mind already, so I left her. Still, I am the one who is going to deal with an ill-tempered high elf elderly and try to gain his favor. Chapter 201 Overwhelming with Science. As it seems that web novel is not contracting fanfics, and this novel can't have a gift system and is a pain in the ass, I decided to go on with my PayPal. Just visit PayPal. me/Eldokmizi. Enjoy Redheart. Great Master Nerilian, it is nice to finally meet you in person. I am very sorry about yesterday and this morning. The Imperials were on my throat all the time. Ho ho. Thane John, no worries, no worries. No bother at all, haha. It gave me enough time to go around Windhelm and visit some old friends in the college, haha. and the high elf, who was stingy as hell in the game, is smiling ear to ear. I was a bit taken aback, but it seemed that my worries about his attitude were overestimated, or he is in a really good mood. I looked at his apprentice that was smiling beside him and didn't feel anything suspicious. "Please take a seat." As we all sat and a servant came to take the requests, Nurelian took out something from his bag. It was the white file. I have spent long years searching for this file, and seeing it being handed to me by Quintus here almost caused me a heart attack. I had to admit that I've been looking for a needle in a haystack, but, tell me, how exactly did you find it? Nurelian asked and narrowed his eyes at me. I knew he was going to ask this question. If I answered him saying I have found it in some sort of a book or something like that, he will know that I am lying. Team Zero reported that he asked some questions about me in the college regarding the field of my studies and what I am famed with. I know alchemy and it is very simple, but I am not at the level that I can brag about myself at all. Nurina is not that good at alchemy herself, but we know the general trick. The deep secrets, however, is not our game. Also, someone like Nurelian must have a direct connection with someone in the alchemy department in the college. These guys are relentless in their work, and the advanced books about alchemy are monitored closely by them even inside the Arcaneum. My answer has to be careful. Well, let's start from the start. I was on one of my travels south of Winterhold long before anything gets established the way it is today. I was heading to the Night Gate village when a snowstorm came out of nowhere and forced me and my attendant to be lost in the mountains as the road was pretty much covered up. The next thing we knew we were in front of an old barrow and some bandits aiming their arrows at us. It was a bloody fight in the storm. I almost lost my head to an arrow and my attendant got her thigh pierced. After a long struggle, we cleared out the bandits to find ourselves in a large and ancient Nordic ruin. After going deeper into the ruin we found undead draugrs and strange traps. There were some rewards and we really struck it lucky, but as an adventurer, I didn't want to go out without finding out the secret of the ruin, and as I battled a powerful draugr, little did I know that what he protected was a storage room blocked by a really shrewd trick. To unlock the room, one needs a stable alchemical mixture that can only be made by a master alchemist. I had to record my thoughts and seal the place before I head back to Winterhold and ask about the best alchemist in Skyrim, and it was Master Nurelian. As I set my request for the said item, Master Nurelian provided me with the item, and I really was pleased with the results once I opened the secured room. What I found in there was a very ancient laboratory. I was enthralled with wonder and ordered no one to approach the place to not damage anything, but nothing there was to be damaged. All the materials I found was some old magical cauldrons that have lost their enchantments, and all the organic ingredients turned into dust when air started to move in the room. The only thing that felt of value in the room was a white broken bottle. Once I saw it, two words came to my mind: the white phial, the same name as Master Nurelian's shop. I then remembered the stories of the thing Master Nurelian was looking for and named his store after, just to make anyone with knowledge about this artifact notice the store. At that time, I knew what did I just discover. I sure talked a lot, but the look on Nurelian's face was worth it. He was getting moved every time I tried to make it dramatic and was smiling happily. Sigh. Elves are so simple. Thane John, this is wonderful. You have walked in the long-lost tomb of a legendary alchemist like Curomil. I am envious, even though I understand the risk of making such an adventure. It would be a great source of inspiration for someone like myself to witness such a place. Alas, I am not that young anymore. Don't say that, Master Nurelian. Last time I asked Quintus about you, I heard you were having some health troubles. But seeing you now, you are healthier than most of the Altmare I know. The ones that I killed, I mean. Ahaha. It is thanks to a series of lucky events that happened as of late, but we'll get to that later. Now, let me be a little bother you with some questions. Here it comes. Not at all, Master Nurelian, please ask. Thank you. His face turned serious again. What made you think you should come to Quintus with the file? Why not directly to me? I knew he was upset about that. Sigh. This is a matter of, how do I say this? I am not that old, so it is pretty much easy to read my mind. If I brought something valuable to my master and she found it broken, I would be given that bone-chilling glare. Well, 2 young men like me and Quintus can cover up the matter, and when I approached him, he told me that Master Neurelian would have a heart attack if he saw the white file in such a state. To get the problem solved, we had to fix the file. Quintus knew the method. I had the ingredients. It all went well. Right, Quintus? Oh, right, Thane John. Neurelian stared at me for a while, then closed his eyes and nodded. Still, after you fixed the file, you left it for me even though you are the one who found it and it belongs to you by right. He stopped talking and looked at me with a piercing gaze. You left it for me because you found out something valuable, more valuable to you than the file? Let me say this, I doubt that you have the ability to create the file, as the reshaping process of the unmelting snow is very impossible. You and Quintus are actually very lucky to be able to fix the crack, and the file appears to be patched. I couldn't believe it would work until I tested it myself. So as the crafting technique wasn't what you are after, then it must be the enchantment. I was sitting behind my desk listening to Neurelian's analysis. Once he finished, I rested my back to my chair and nodded with a smile. He continued. I knew it, but this is even more impossible than the crafting technique. It is greatly flawed, and when I tried to copy it, I destroyed containers I made them on. Even the best Elven and Dwemer metal couldn't stand the enchantment. I nodded and replied. Let me guess, the metal started melting before your eyes. Exactly, that enchantment is overbearing. Sigh, it is the same problem I faced with the Magica reactor. Well, this is a part of the reason why Curelmil used one of the coldest materials his hands could get on to stabilize the overheating flaw with a cold substance. Indeed, I agree with you. Still, to get your hands on an enchantment that can literally create something from nothing without having the right material to enchant it on is not really that useful, right? Excuse me for my curiousness, and tell me, what exactly did you gain out of your unrewarded labor? Neurelian asked. Oh, a lot. A lot. Indeed, also creating something from nothing is, excuse my language, but it is very wrong. You completely don't understand the enchantments on the file. I said something a bit rude which made Quintus almost refute for his master, but Neurelian spoke fast. Wait. You said that the white file doesn't create something from nothing? And it is not just one enchantment? My reply was only a smile. It can't be. Neurelian's golden skin turned pale. No one would see a high elf go pale every day. I took out a red clean note from my desk and put it in front of Neurelian. Just that you know, this is not for free. I said that, and Neurelian's eye landed on the note. He knew that opening it means making a deal with the devil, but who cares? Even Shalader made a deal with Sheogorath for knowledge once. He took the note and opened it, then started reading. 20 minutes later, he lowered it down and looked with blank eyes to space. Thane John, my master, is her all right? Just leave him to rest his mind for a while, Quintus. The insights of archphysicist Albert Einstein with the explanations of the laws of conservation of matter and energy are really crazy to deal with. Applying them on magic doesn't make them any better. After all, I am the poor soul who used the system within him to resurface those unpleasant memories from high school and the documentaries I watched to apply that damned science stuff on magic. It is a nightmare, I tell you, a nightmare. Chapter 202, Recruiting a Master Alchemist. A big thanks to Ian Bell for support. Learn from his selfless example, damn it. When I looked at Neurelian and saw his hazy eyes, it reminded me with my state in high school for some reason. Einstein really ruined my brain at that period of my past life. Seeing his curse spreading around in another world by me made it feel so good. A few minutes later, Neurelian came to the world of the living again. This man. Grandmaster Albert Einstein, what era did he live in? How can a man such as him exist, and this world doesn't even know about him? No, he can't be a man. Is he one of the old Dwemer we don't know of? He's got to be. Neurelian couldn't calm down until he was served some lemon tea. How do you think about the laws of conservation of both energy and matter? I asked. It changes everything. I know. The white phial, it transforms magicka to matter. It can do a very terrifying process, and just looking at it won't make anyone believe it. Oriel's light. Creating something from nothing is simply impossible after all. Of course, only a perfect being can do so. A god, for example. Gods are a word you humans use. I know, but if you look at things my way, you will see that even the Etiata can't create something from nothing. Only a being with a power, where science and logic lose to, is the perfect being capable of doing so. That's why we researchers don't ever go after what is perfect. Neurelian thought for a while and nodded. That's why you were sure that creating something from nothing is impossible, because it is perfectness. Exactly. Your words carry some wisdom, but you are going against what both men like Nords and Mare like High Elves believe in. By degrading the gods of men who are Edra and denying the elven Edra of perfectness, hell, even the Daedra are no gods in your eyes. They simply may be powerful beings that all mortals hailed from, but a god should be much more almighty, not a being that can be trapped in a mortal plane, not a being whose heart can be torn out. But what does that make God if perfect is impossible to exist? Humans always say God this and God that, but the way you are looking at things. Does God exist in your point of view? Here where I come with the so-called agenda, but don't really get bothered with the opinions, it is just me making this chapter longer with a topic I enjoy. This question went far and wide between many men of science and logic I heard of before. All of them knew that nothing is perfect and even abhorred it. They asked themselves of the true meaning of being perfect, and the answer was nothing. If something is truly perfect, then that's just it. The borders are formed, there is no room for advancing and learning further, a state of hopeless stillness and a dead end. That's why they always sought the better than, but never the perfect. This is how they advanced to prove themselves right or wrong and took the hard ways to reach the better answers. So perfection is an impossible concept and a taboo not to be pursued. And now to the question about God. Well, that depends on how you see science and logic. Will they be able to figure out what God is? If they can, then that is not a God. If they can't, then that being should be a God. That of course should be accompanied by a proof from God by an act of perfection known as a miracle. I won't say any more than that. Neurelian looked at me again, and looked at the note I gave him, then sighed. My head will not take all of that in one day. I should go and study this note first, then come and have more talks with you. Ha ha. You are welcome any time, Master Neurelian. The talk with Neurelian was something really enjoyable from that moment onward. We kept competing with a lot of theories in magic and natural laws to the point we were equally tired. I wasn't the brightest student back in the days, but with a system digging my memories on its own, I could study things I never did seriously in my past life. Knowledge supporting magic is one of my strength points, and it is really enjoyable to apply both on each other. Just one last question. What are you applying that enchantment from the white phial on? Not before you tell me what you used it for. Oh, I used it to reproduce a rare solvent of alchemy I acquired from my master. It is called Lorcan's Tears, and its rarity is superior to any other solvent. It has the ability to create potions with 0% chance of failure and a high quality too, unless the person is a hopeless fool. And it also is the reason why I am back to full health. Oh, congratulations on your recovery. But damn, that solvent is too overpowered. Lorcan's tears are not really the tears of Lorcan. It is just something so hard to come by that it was named after Lorcan, who mocked his enemies even after they killed him. Lorcan tears is a solvent known to be purer than famous alchemy products like star dew and cloud mist. It is really hard to come by, and mass producing it with the white file is really cheating. What about you? Neurelian asked. Oh, I am creating a device that is a bit simpler than the white file. I call it the Magica reactor. I got inspired by another device called the Arc reactor, made by the arch-engineer Tony Stark, but I am not going to put it on my chest and power up a piece of armor with it. I can do that though. Oh. It is a bit hard to understand, but it sounds great. Thank you. Neurelian and I hit it good, we are now buddies. At that moment my best buddy showed up. Hey John. I have collected it all, the malachite, the moonstone and the quicksilver. Wolfer was carrying a big crate over his shoulder while saying so. What else do you need? A really strong fire. Drag Johnrad out here. He is the best fire mage we know of. We also need someone to watch over the process, in case of something went wrong. I'll be that person. Last thing we need is a strong acid, the most damnable acid on Nirn, and a lot of soul gems. I'll figure something out. At that moment, Neurelian jumped from his seat. You are crafting mithril, right? I looked at him and sighed. Of course he would figure it out. Mithril does exist in this world, and it is very rare and comes with many secret recipes. The most common ingredients are the ones Wolfer came with just now. It is not the complete thing, and some parts in the experiment need a lot of rechecking, but I am willing to start it now. Mithril is canon in the lore, even though it only appeared in The Elder Scrolls IV. Oblivion. It was very underrated in my opinion. I am taking the more fantasy approach to the mithril my way. Still, Neurelian may be able to help. Yes, this mithril will be for the finest lady in Skyrim, so no sharing. Haha, don't worry. But I am your best hope. If you want a strong acid, I can make a special mixture that you will not ever see or hear of from anyone but me. I looked at the note I gave him and smiled. That's not enough, you know. Haha, how wicked. Don't worry, I am planning to move to Winterhold from now on. Nothing ties me to Windhelm anyway. His answer was like chirps to my ears. I wanted to go and hug him, but I restrained myself. So, Big Bad Ulfric is going to miss his favorite Altmare. Haha, I bet he will. Now with the most famed alchemist in Windhelm joining forces with me, my life is getting much more easier. I will make sure to prepare the best house in town for Master Neurelian and Quintus. There will be a shop and laboratory with every and anything you may want. One of my men will deliver the title deed in an hour. Thank you, thank you. Neurelian and I kept exchanging words of compliments until he left. I couldn't help myself but to make a victory pose. Now Winterhold is backed by a high elf master alchemist. Wolf, my man, let's go make some mithril. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.